Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, James Faunt. So good to see all of you guys on this beautiful Tuesday. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. Welcome back to every single one of you going ahead and saying my hellos to all y'all. Please go ahead and give a like to the stream, as well as do all the things like subscribe and share. That helps me out very much, especially now that YouTube is focusing more on people participating. So thank you so very much to that for that, so that I could be able to reach more people. Appreciate it. If you guys have not already, you guys could also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com, so you guys can get email notifications whenever I go live or upload any clips. So you guys have that there. And also, if you guys want to ask me a question and have a video response, or if you guys would like for me to react to a video that you guys would like for me to watch, you guys can always submit it through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. So you guys have that there. So a blanket hello to everybody who's watching on this beautiful afternoon. But first, we have a guest, so we're going to be getting to them very, very shortly. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the thumbnail. Let's take a look and see what we're going to be talking about today. We have 3 segments today, and our guest is going to be staying for 2, so we got a 2 for today. So here we go. So we are going to be talking about later in the show about a light sentence for the officer involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor. We're going to be talking about this. There is a poll that I have up there. If you guys want to wait until the story, go ahead and take the poll. If you guys want to go ahead and answer the poll now, that is quite all right. But we will be discussing that later in the show today. Also, towards the middle of the show, we're going to be talking about physicians frustrated. We're going to be talking about this doctor and why is she so frustrated. We'll be talking, and little side note, it has to do with United Healthcare. So we're going to be getting into that because healthcare is something that is I'm very passionate about. We're going to be getting into that. But first, we're going to be talking to my guest, Lex Knight. She is an activist and advocate as well. And she was assaulted by Democrats. We're going to be getting that and getting into her account, and as well as the actions that she's doing on the ground as far as mutual aid and organizing as well. So we're going to introduce my guest right for now. We'll be getting into it with Lex Knight. Says Democrats assault an activist. And Lex is pronouns are they, them. So thank you so very much. Introducing Lex. Good to have
Hello.
you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. It's your first time on stream with me here, and it's good to have you. You came from Orlando. You were also part of Real, and you
Mhm.
are trying to expand on that. If you can give us just a little bit about your background first before we get into the situation that happened.
So I'm a communist. I started organizing with Real, I want to say about maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. But because the cost of living in Orlando was impossibly high, even as a dental assistant working in the health profession, I couldn't afford to live there. So I ended up moving to the Midwest in the Quad Cities in Iowa. And with my experience organizing with Real, I wanted to start a similar organization here,
Mhm.
so that we could, build class consciousness, do mutual aid, and, combat the hold that the Democrats have on all organizing in these cities. There's 4 cities here that are kind of grouped into one. That's why it's called the Quad Cities. Um, my background is, I'm a Russian Ukrainian American. My family is from Crimea. My grandmother still lives there. I have family in Moscow and Kiev. And so I'm very affected by, this war, and I have been, since even before 2014.
Mhm.
So I've known about it for a very long time as somebody that is directly affected by it, and my family is directly affected by it. Bombs are dropping on my grandmother's city. You know, so that's part of why the incident that we're going to talk about happened, is because, I'm somebody that's directly affected by this conflict, and Democrats refuse to listen to people that are actually affected by it, instead listening to, the mass media and, like, what politicians say as opposed to people on the ground.
So you are one of those uh, ethnic Russian speaking Ukrainians that really were the victims of what was happening back in 2014. I mean, you and your people in your family
Yeah,
were
my grandma voted
that
in the
happened to.
referendum.
And so you're seeing it from really the anecdotal side. Um, and if, I think this is why this is so important, because a lot of times we talk about how what has happened in Ukraine as far as between what happened with Vladimir Putin and as far as Volodymyr Zelensky, the war that has started back in January, I think it was February 2022.
Yep.
But people don't realize that this is actually goes back even further. About four, if I'm correct, there's 14,000 ethnic speaking, Russian speaking Ukrainians that were murdered in, I think it was the Donbass region.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have a lot more intimate knowledge about that than I do. So this goes into basically that territory.
It does, yeah. I mean, like I said, it was the Democrats, so they were clearly all pro-Ukraine, but refused to listen to somebody that my family is Ukrainian, my family is Russian, my family are Russian-speaking Ukrainians from Crimea, and, they refused to listen to, and as soon as they found out that I was not, like, pro-Zelensky, they completely dismissed all of my concerns and essentially did nothing.
Wow. This sounds similar to, kind of similar to how a lot of Jewish people who are anti Zionists have rejected Zionism, and now how they are essentially, being disowned by their family who may be Zionist for rejecting the genocide, well, really the Holocaust that Israel is committing against the Palestinians.
And part of the hostility, I think, started because I was wearing a keffiyeh, so,
Mm.
I think that they immediately saw me as an outsider. I mean, the organization, One Human Family here, is a Zionist organization, so it makes sense why they would not wanna protect me in any way, um, despite the fact that, I was I mean, it was basically an attempted murder what they did. I was shoved into the street, prevented from getting back up, and it's one of the busiest streets in the city. And like they straight up, because I said, Trump's not a Russian asset. That was a reason to try and kill somebody, essentially.
So let's get into this because I would like to recount what exactly you have went through. Um, because reading exactly what happened is one thing, but it's more impactful coming straight from you. So how did this all start? You said that basically you were telling people the fact that Trump is not a Russian asset, and so of course liberals and Democrats, they're propagandizing the thinking that anything having to do with Russia is completely evil. So therefore um, they're going to be adversarial to anybody who claims otherwise. So
Yeah.
if you can start off with that, please.
Well, so ironically, I was sitting in the audience when they started doing the chicken dance as some sort of protest against
Okay,
Trump.
we got.
Um,
we,
and
I was hoping you get to this part, because even though what you went through is bad, it's harrowing, it's jarring, which I fully agree. This part right here just it sent me for a loop because when you showed me this, I was speechless at how absurd the
yeah,
Democrats really are. I'm going to show you
they
guys
were
this.
writing letters to
This is
Joe
what they were
Biden.
doing. This is what they consider to be part of their activism.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, no, that was like they're like "F you to Trump," essentially. They also wrote letters to Joe Biden. Um, yeah, yeah, they wrote letters to Joe Biden, and other Democratic, like, elected people, as well as they wrote, like, hate letters and stuff. I don't know, it was super bizarre. I wasn't actually planning on going until I saw that there was a Palestinian organization here that was going, and, I wanted to show up in support of, Palestinians. But when I got there, I saw a guy like, during the chicken dance is kinda when I started looking around because I was like, "What is this? This is crazy." And I see this guy holding a sign that, says, "Send him back, Trump return to sender," and it has, like, a hammer and sickle and, like, a pointed hand towards the hammer and sickle, implying, Trump's some sort of communist. Which I was like, as somebody whose family's from the Soviet Union, I was like, "What?" Like, as a communist, as somebody whose family's from the Soviet Union, I was really shocked and really confused, and so, like, I went up to this guy, and I started talking to him, and, I was like, "So, what does your sign mean? Can you explain to me why you think that he's a communist?" And they, started saying basic, like, liberal, like, BS about, like, Trump not sending aid to Ukraine anymore, um, and, like, I just found the imagery very offensive and really upsetting because, we all know Trump's not a communist. He's not a Russian asset, he's sending things to Ukraine. Um, like, he withheld aid, and then they signed the mineral deal, and then they immediately started sending aid again, so it was clearly just a ploy to get the minerals that are in the Donbas region. Um, and, knowing all of this, I tried to, like, explain to him because, like, I generally think that, if I can educate or reach people, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna speak up and I'm going to talk to them and try to see where they're coming from because, maybe, like, he has a misunderstanding, but, the second I started saying anything that was contradictory to what they believed, he started saying, like, "I know what you are, get the fuck out of my face." Um, and, like, in the video, you can see me in the right in the keffiyeh and him, like, putting his hands around my face. I was standing a comfortable distance away from him. He kept telling me to leave. Another woman ended up overhearing it, and when I said the words "Trump's not a Russian asset," she was like, "I'm a woman and I have no problem doing this to you," and then she shoved me into the busy street. They were lined up along the street, um, holding these signs, these really ridiculous signs, um, and I was just trying to explain, and he asked if I was gay, and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Well, they hate gay people in Russia," and I was like, "Well, they hate gay people in Ukraine too. That's just like an Eastern European thing that, like, the Communist Party never really dealt with." So, like, that's really not the gotcha that they think it is. Like, I was more visibly queer when I was younger, and so I've been there with, like, colorful hair, with, like, very queer outfits and stuff, and, I've never really gotten attacked or yelled at in any way. I wasn't really in, like, Moscow or anything or protesting. I was just kind of existing, and, people respected me in the same way they would anybody else. It wasn't, like, uniquely aggressive. I'd argue I've had more hate crimes done against me in Florida than I ever did in Russia or Ukraine. Um, so, then he started saying that I needed like, if I cared so much, I should go back there, and, like, fight, and I was like, "Well, I'm I'm an American citizen. I was born here. My family is there, and, like, the only reason my family ever came here was because of the collapse, um, and that's why I was born here. Like, I would rather communism and socialism still exist in the USSR, and, like, I would rather be there, but I'm not because of American imperialism and the way that they, like, shut down the country, and, like, destroyed it and illegally dissolved it. He also kept saying, like, "Who invaded who?" And, I was like, "Well, it didn't start in 2022," and he just kept, like, screaming in my face, "Who invaded who?" And I was like, "It didn't start in 2022, like, it didn't even start in 2014, it started way before then," Um, there was a lot of like, during the Maidan, the Euromaidan, they, took off a, like, more pro-Russia president and put in a more anti-Russia president, um, and I tried to explain this, and they just, started saying that, like, they know what I am, and, like, shoved me into the street and then, like, all rushed me, 4 people preventing me from getting back up, and, I'm a disabled person, I have a shoulder injury, I can't really fight back, so there's no way that I was ever going to, like, attack or stand up to these people. I was standing there, hands to my chest because I was holding a Zion that I had gotten from a different table. Um, and, he starts screaming that he's going to call the cops, that I assaulted him. So we go up. I see a camera. And my roommate and my comrade, they point out the camera. I go up to the person recording, and, I'm already really upset and I just start crying because this lady is like, I saw everything that happened. I filmed everything. If you need the footage, here's my card. Um, but at that point, different Democratic organizers start coming up and telling me that I could just be saying anything, um, which is kind of crazy. They were like, you could just be like saying stuff to like sow division or whatever. And I was just like really confused and really upset. But once they watched the video and saw that I was straight up just standing there, I didn't touch the guy, I didn't go near the guy. Like, I was standing in front of him, and then like a lady shoved me. And, once everybody else had seen the video, that's when the guy that was holding the anti-Trump Trump's a communist sign, essentially, that's when he left after once again threatening to call the cops on me, saying that I attacked him. At some point, I got, like, kind of shoved into him, and I brushed up against his arm, which he then started screaming in my face more until the video showed that I was attacked by them. But they continued to scream and shout at me saying, like, "I know what you are. I know who you are," like, essentially implying I'm some sort of Russian asset when, like, in reality, I just am a person who's directly affected by this conflict and has been for years. I mean, my babushka, she still lives in Crimea. She lives in Sevastopol, and, like, there's straight up bombs being dropped on the place where my grandfather used to work, you know, close to the apartment, like, not where civilians live, but, like, within, like, a mile or so. She's hiding from bombs and all of this, and so I tried to explain all of this to these people, and they just were like, not they just kept telling me to call the cops, and I've had trauma with the cops. I don't like the cops as a communist, not a big fan of them, so I was like, "Can we just ask these people to leave?" Like, all I was requesting was for the organizers of the event to get these people out of there. You know, I wasn't even trying to get these people in trouble, I wasn't trying to get these people arrested, I just wanted them, if people that are protesting in the name of your organization are attacking other protesters or other activists, then, they should be requested to leave.
Yeah, their
And they
liability.
continued to refuse that.
Yeah.
Um, which honestly was super mind-boggling, and, like, they kept shuffling me from one organizer to another, me explaining what happened, them realizing that I was, like, even remotely anti-Zelensky, the current regime in Ukraine, and I kept explaining, "I'm not, like, pro-Putin, I'm not, like, any of that, I'm pro the people that live there." I listen to the people that live there, I listen to my family, I listen to my neighbors there, and that's how I get my information. I'm in a bunch of different Telegram groups that track the kidnapping of Ukrainian men into the military. I follow all of this stuff really closely because, it's my people. And they just kept screaming at me. They kept ignoring my request to ask these people to leave. Then when oh god, when um one of these organizers went up to the woman that actually shoved me. The only reason they asked her to leave was because she started being aggressive with him. So her attacking me was not enough to ask her to leave, but a indivisible organizer going up to her and her sort of just like being a little bit combative with him, not even like physically, just like verbally, was enough to ask her to leave. But the other woman that prevented me from getting up, she said that she was trying to de-escalate the situation, and I don't know about you, but sh crowding around somebody that got just shoved into the street and preventing them from getting back up onto the sidewalk is in no way de-escalation at all. Like, that's not de-escalating. Going in defense of the person that got attacked, that's de-escalating. Telling those people to leave, that's de-escalating. but they didn't do any of that. Instead, they just the lady that the lady that was on the stage while doing the chicken dance, um, she actually went and what they did was they went and made an announcement and they said, "Hey, people on the street, don't put your hands on each other." And that's it. Like that was their way of dealing with the situation, not refusing, not telling these people to leave. The man left of his own accord after he realized that everybody saw that I didn't touch him, I didn't do anything. And the woman left after she was being aggressive with a Democratic organizer. And all these people just kept telling me that, like, I could just be saying stuff. The actual organizers of the event refused to watch the video. They just kept saying that I could be saying stuff and that, like, essentially implying that I kind of deserved it. Which, like, I was just like really incredibly upset. They just would not address the situation. And when we talked to the lady that had filmed it on WQAD, she then told us that she couldn't release the video to us because her manager had said we needed to get a subpoena, um, which is absurd. Like that's crazy. They won't provide the evidence of my attack because they
No.
don't want yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Like they filmed everything right up to the point, basically. They show this guy like shoving his hand in my face, telling me to get the fuck out of there. And then they cut off the video. But they still show me in the background, him getting aggressive with me while I'm straight up just standing there, hands to my chest.
Okay,
And
can
it,
we
it
can
was
we
just
take a look at that really quick?
yeah, yeah, I sent you
Okay.
the link.
Yeah, I have it here.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So wait, I hate when it does this. Okay.
Ugh.
See, I have an ad blocker and it won't let me watch it without ads. I hate this. Yeah, sorry, it won't let me watch without ads. I have an ad blocker on.
I think you can mute the ad.
Uh, I'll have to. Let me see.
Mm.
All right, let me just turn that off just for a second. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. All right, so let's get into this.
So if you look, I'm the one in the red with the keffiyeh, the only person with the keffiyeh on in the video. Um,
So I'm gonna mute, and then I'll come back in once the ad finishes playing. It kind of stinks that they're forcing you to watch ads in order to be able to watch.
I mean,
This is
that's the
why
state of
we're
our
doing
news at this
YouTube.
point.
Yeah. So, all right. So we can share a screen now. Okie dokie. I hate capitalism. All right. So let's get into. Oh,
Independence. Quad Cities 50-50 July anymore, but Quad citizens are still celebrating independence. Quad Cities 50-51 holding a Stand Up for Freedom party. Emma Bucher shows how they celebrate and the purpose behind it all.
They're going to prove that joy is a form of resistance. They don't want us to be happy. Too bad.
Over 100 people gathering on Breedy Street July 5th, waving signs and speaking out against state politicians.
okay.
Quad citizens are still
Oh,
celebrating independence. Quad
sorry.
Cities 50
Happy? Too bad.
Over 100 people gathering on Breedy Street July 5th,
I think I saw
waving
you.
signs and speaking out against state
Okay.
politicians.
Okay. So you're right here, right?
Yep,
Yes.
yeah, that's me.
Okay. And the guy with the white hat. So you guys see where it says "Keep the immigrants, deport the racists." She's right behind that person.
They.
Okay. All right. So keep your eye on this one right here.
and President Trump while still celebrating American independence.
We're going to make our voices heard. We are here with a purpose. We are here for camaraderie, community. You are not alone in this fight.
Much of the protest focusing on President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill Act, passing the House and Senate earlier this week. Opponents say the bill will cause sweeping cuts to Medicaid and SNAP programs.
A lot of people are going to lose their lives with the cutting off of Medicaid for people. It's tragic that's happened.
Visitors invited to write notes to be delivered to Senators Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley and Representative Marionette Miller Meeks.
Our legislators need to hear from, the people that put them in office, us, the people that elected them. And whether it's writing letters or making a phone call or going and knocking on their door and talking to their staff.
Organizers say they plan on delivering those notes.
First of all, hang on. I just want to say something about what that lady said. I'm sick and tired of call your congressperson. That actually worked out.
No, they actually they had people that were running for office like come and speak, and none of them said anything serious. None of them said anything. Like they just, it was just liberal talking points again and again. There was no like serious conversation about what is to be done. I mean, they said that like joy was like a form of resistance, which in my opinion is absurd because joy is not a form of resistance. That is straight up just, you know, like anger is a form of resistance. Doing something is a form of resistance. Speaking up is a form of resistance, but like doing the chicken dance and being happy and like dancing around on the street with an American flag, that's not resistance in any way. Writing letters to Joe Biden, the guy that like spent his entire career lobbying for Israel and, set up all the conditions for October 7th to happen and for the genocide and the Holocaust that's happening in Gaza to like continue, that's not resistance.
Yeah, exactly. And as we can see here, I mean, they're basically just having this belief that all we have to do is just stay within the system and we could actually change things. But then once somebody actually is about really changing the system, then they see that person as an absolute threat. When in reality, you're actually working to really change the system in its totality. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I mean, we started once I moved here, I basically immediately started organizing because there was nothing except for these like democratic organizations like One Human Family, which is Zionist, or um, Indivisible, which is just Democrats, or there's a couple of like DSA stuff, but they also support Zionists, so like you know, um, I immediately started organizing. I started with, making sandwiches and reaching out to the homeless population because in Iowa and Illinois, I'm right on the border. They closed down all of the homeless shelters and then expected private equity to come in and house these people, which why would private equity ever try to house homeless people? That doesn't make sense to me. There's no profit to be made in that. So I started, doing what I saw Real doing. I started with food. They were on your stream, I believe, a couple of months ago, talking about how they started, and I took that information and started applying it to here. We started with food. I started with making jam, but we made jam together. Remember, at the Revolutionary Groundings event. So I took what I learned from Real and I started applying it here. I started making jam from local fruits that I found on the trees and bushes, and distributing it to the community. We've moved on to like meat sandwiches and stuff, as well as first aid kits too, because there was a lot of these homeless people, they end up the cops basically chase them out of the city into the woods. So they end up getting a lot of injuries. So one of the things that we wanted to prioritize was giving them antibiotic cream, giving them Band-Aids, giving them, alcohol pads. And we had a lot of requests for Tylenol as well. So we started with that as well as food, because on Sundays here, they all of the food ways that people can get food are just like gone. And also a lot of these people aren't very mobile. They are disabled, they have injuries. I was looking at census data, and the majority of the homeless population here is disabled. So there's no way that they're going to be able to walk to a food bank. There's no way that they're going to be able to cook raw beans or anything, because they have nothing. They're like sleeping on tarps in the grass, and then the cops are going around, and we're getting told that the cops are harassing them, throwing away their stuff, going as far as beating them up as well. Like, it's very hostile to be homeless here. We see people in wheelchairs that just that straight up have nowhere to go. And it's really scary out here for these people. Actually, one of the men that we met, his name was Jeff. He actually ended up passing away about 9 days ago. We heard. I've been looking for him. Um, and I had brought some stuff specifically that he had requested, and when I had spoken to another woman, I believe her name was Sonia, she let me know that he had passed away, but that she had heard about our organization from him. So our name is already, in the 3 weeks that I've been here, is already getting around. People are already knowing who we are, what we're doing, and a lot of them talk to the lack of education here, the lack of, political education in particular, how there is no understanding of, they're not using these terms, but they're implying that there's no understanding of the material conditions. There's no care for these people. They don't see them. They see them as a surplus population that, needs to be essentially exterminated because they want to beautify the city. There's so many empty houses here. Like, I'm not even kidding. You walk down any of the main roads, there's empty buildings. There's places where these people could stay. A lot of these people congregate around one empty house that is just boarded up, and they stay on the stoop, and that's where we find them. But the city isn't doing anything about it. They are kicking people off of the lawn, and it just it's horrible. It's really horrible hearing about the experience of these people. And every time that I'm out there handing out food, they are so grateful, and I feel like I'm doing nothing. I'm giving them a PB&J or a ham and cheese sandwich with lettuce and tomato and mayo. I'm not doing all that much, but that's more than they've ever gotten from anybody else, which is crazy to me. I'm doing a lot of this out of my own pocket. I'm doing a lot of it out of, we're not getting any donations. We're just people that are coming together to do this ourselves because nobody else is doing it, and these people are straight up dying on the streets. Another woman was telling, I believe her name was Mary. She was telling me about how last year, um, one of her friends ended up hanging himself, and they had to cut him down themselves because the police would not come and take away the body. She told us that a month ago, a homeless man ended up um, laying down on the tracks and killing himself. So these people, they don't care about them. They don't see them as real human beings, and they don't see them as deserving of help or deserving of a place to live or basic human dignity of food. Um, and if I have anything to give, if I have any skills, the jam, that's basically almost free because I'm just picking stuff off of the trees. And it just, you know, I'm gonna do what I can. Oh, and our we have a website. It's peoplesrevolutionaryleague.org or qcpeopleskitchen.com. They both link to the same site. At the top, if anybody is in the Iowa, Illinois, Quad City area, please submit a volunteer form. We are looking for people. If you know anybody around this area, please, come and give us some help, some hands, anything helps. Heck, even talking to these people, a lot of them just have nobody to talk to that's going to listen to them. People dismiss them right off the bat. And here I am typing it out for you, but it's really upsetting watching all of these Democrats do the chicken dance when they can't even have the basic human dignity to give somebody a sandwich. They're collecting all of these donations, and they're writing all of these letters and doing nothing for the people that actually live here. Instead, they are trying to kill activists for speaking up, for talking to their own experience, and it is just it's really upsetting, and it's really distressing watching these people just do nothing, and then yell and try to kill people that are actually doing something. Because I can guarantee you none of these people have ever talked to a homeless person as if they're a real human being. They see them as an eyesore, or they wanna beautify the city by getting rid of them, which just means killing them or running them off into the woods where they can die on their own. Um, we find people that can't even walk to our cars, so we bring them the sandwiches, we bring them the food, we bring them the first aid kits, and we are getting requests from community members for duffel bags or for sleeping bags. That way they're not sleeping on just straight up a tarp. We've been distributing, because of the heat wave that I mentioned before we started the stream, I've been distributing, those like towels that you get wet and then you kind of like flick them a little bit and they help cool you down. Um, that was really useful in Florida, and these people have never really experienced a heat wave like this, so I have been distributing that as well with my comrades, and also ponchos, because a lot of their stuff is getting wet, from this, like, unseasonable rain that we've been having,
Yeah.
um, and it is just I mean, it's just crazy to me that, like, they straight up don't see these people as human beings that are deserving of help or deserving of anything other than, like, being beat up and attacked by cops. It just I don't know, I can talk about this for hours because, like, I hear so many stories every single week that I'm out, and I feel like I'm not doing much, but I'm doing more than anybody else has ever done for these people, and that is, crazy to me because I'm just giving out, like, I don't know, like 50 sandwiches, basically. We often give people multiple because that way they have something to eat later in the day, because on Sundays and Saturdays, there's just no food distribution at all,
Wow.
for people.
Wow. Yeah. So this is the your recounting of what happened.
Mhm.
Um, that happened, between you and Democratic rally goers. This is the
That's the
gentleman
signs.
that attacked you. In fact, it's in large. It says Trump returned to sender with the hammer and sickle.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah, he obviously has no idea what communism really is.
No, none of them do, and I was looking at their old rallies too from before I moved here, and, like, they straight up have, like, "Trump is a communist," and I'm like, "What? Trump is what?"
Yeah,
Um, that's the woman that prevented me from getting up on the sidewalk, and, they say they're anti-fascist, and then they're holding the flag of a fascist nation, of an imperialist settler colony, like,
yeah, with a rainbow
you know
flag in their background, as
and
if they
telling gay people to
care
go back
about
to Russia
queer people
because
who are Ukrainian, or if they as if they're probably on the side of Israel, who they care. They say they care about LGBTQ people, but what about the LGBTQ Palestinians that are being bombed right now? Like they don't give a shit about them,
that are being
you
shot,
know.
like,
Or
that are being genocided and killed.
and I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, probably half of those people, and I'm making an assumption here, but and this is purely my assumption, but some of these people probably look at somebody like me and they probably wouldn't even want me in their neighborhood because they probably think I'm gonna steal some shit.
No,
And
yeah, and
without actually really getting to know me, these look like a bunch of Karens that really just do not give a shit about people who are marginalized, especially those of people like myself and you who are part of the LGBTQ community, who are actually doing what we can to actually help our neighbors. And it just goes to show that it's like, okay, says Grand Tifa, grandmothers resisting fascist oligarchs. My question is, what about the fascist oligarchs that were also contributing to Joe Biden and his campaign as well? I'm not saying that fascist oligarchs don't contribute to Trump. They do, but the same ones that contribute to Trump also contribute to Joe Biden. So my thing is that she is being completely hypocritical by wearing that shirt and saying that she's against fascism while she's still in a party that's committing fascism, aka a
they're just
21st century
supporting it.
Holocaust within the within Palestine.
Yeah,
And then
no,
on
I
top
mean,
of
these
that, what about
people
what's going on to the 21st? The horrible things that's happening to those of us who are marginalized here, especially the Black community, and they're sitting there standing by Joe Biden when he authored the '94 crime bill, and they're
yeah.
standing by him. It
I mean,
just it's
he was
asinine.
brought into Congress by a Klansman. Like, you know, like, I'm sorry, but, like, these people aren't serious about change, they're serious about preserving the status quo, they're serious about maintaining our current system that they are benefiting from as, white people that are like, they just don't care. And honestly, at the rally, the demographics here are a lot more white. I mean, I'm not in the South anymore, so I wasn't expecting this many white people. But there's so many. I'm not even kidding. I think there was like maybe 5 Black people at the entire and they were there with an immigrant organization that was there, and like that's it, like that's the people, and the rest of them were just like old white ladies and old white guys and a bunch of veterans too. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like we're supporting war criminals that like went to other countries and killed a bunch of kids, and like, like why are you guys propping up Obama and Biden as like the paragons of, progressive democracy? Because I mean, Obama bombed weddings, Obama bombed children, like drone strikes and all of that. And yet, because it's not Trump, and like, these people weren't doing anything before Trump got elected. They were just sitting at home going to brunch, they were not doing anything serious. They just want Trump out. That's what they keep saying. They're like, Trump's the most important thing. And I'm like, no, destruction of the American system, the imperialist system that is supporting all of this. That's the most important thing, because until we do that, we can't tackle anything else. Racism is implicit to the system that we live in, and until the system is destroyed, you can't say, like they were saying stuff like we can't be free until we all are, like nobody's free until we all are free. And I'm like, you're being so hypocritical, because the only way to free people is to destroy the capitalist system that we live in. And yet all they want to do is preserve it. All they want to do is write love letters to Joe Biden, like and do the chicken dance. Like, that's not serious. It's God, it was so crazy to witness. Like it was so crazy to witness the chicken dance. I straight up was like, what? Where am I? Like what? Like I thought Florida was bad. I thought Florida was bad, but then like these people are so much worse, and like at least in Florida, like people have an understanding like of somewhat of the material conditions, because we have a very like class stratified and race stratified society. Like I lived in Oviedo, and at one side of Oviedo there's McMansions filled with white people. At the other side there's mobile homes filled with Black and brown people. Like, you know, um, and it was just completely insane and mind-boggling that they seriously thought doing the chicken dance was gonna do anything. That, having, like, a choir of teenage girls singing. I don't remember, I was, like, already attacked at this point, but, like, they had a choir singing while I was, like, crying in the corner trying to get somebody to take me seriously and ask these people to leave. Um, and, like, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything, you know? And, like, the question, apart from wanting Trump to stand down, what were the demands of these so-called protesters? I don't know, because they had no demands. Their demands were just, "We hate Trump, we want Trump gone," and that was it. They had
I'm gonna
no
make a
actual actionable actions that, like, you should be taking, or that they wanted to be done, or that they wanted to be seen. It was just support the Democrats, write letters to Joe Biden, reach out to your senators. Like, after October 7th, I was constantly emailing Florida senators and stuff, and, like, nothing happened, Nothing
yeah.
happened. It's still happening. It's getting worse by the day, And these people, they just want the system to continue because they're benefiting from it, and they don't care about thinking any further about it, and they just want to feel good about standing up and saying like BS, like complete BS. It's all about their own feelings. It's not about actually like material change or justice for anybody at all.
Yeah. In fact, okay, I'm gonna make a judgmental statement. So, if people have daggers for me, it is what it is. But doing the chicken dance at a Democrat rally to try to force change, to me, is the lamest shit I've ever heard of.
It
Like,
was
you
so
wouldn't even,
lame.
like, the fact that it's not just ineffectual, but it is lame.
They
My
also
thing is
had
like,
a blow up
y'all could have did
chicken.
like that electric slide or something like that. I mean, you make it, if it's gonna be ineffectual, at least to make it fun and ineffectual. Why not they do some lame ass chicken dance?
And they had a blow up of a chicken with like a Trump like the Trump wig, the yellow. People were
No,
taking pictures next to it. Yes, I'm so
no.
serious. Like it was bizarre. Let me see if I can find it cuz like it was
All
crazy.
right,
It
I'll
was
leave myself.
crazy.
That's it. That's it.
That's what Democrats are doing. They're like, they're not doing anything at all. They're taking pictures next to chicken dances. Let me see if I can find it cuz like it was straight up, and all of the signs were just like they were just like, I'm like I'm an American veteran and I hate Trump and I'm like, "Okay, well,
It's
you're a
like,
war
well,
criminal."
get in line. But the thing is, like, what are you doing for the actual people on the ground in order to change things, that in order
Nothing.
to build dual power, in order to circumvent this system so that we can actually build class solidarity? And my question is, okay, yeah, Trump is bad. So are you guys actually reaching out to people who are workers like you in order to be able to get them to wake up? But that also means calling out the party that you are in team with as well. That means leaving both parties and seeing them for what they really are. It's just co-workers under the same boss. That's
Yeah,
really all it is.
exactly. They're funded by the same people.
Yeah, it's like, why in the hell would I go to a restaurant that has the KFC and Pizza Hut attached to each other, and then I go through the door, and then I don't like the person who's serving me KFC, so I go to the other side of the counter to get to the person who's selling Pizza Hut, and then I'm like still mad that I'm getting served terribly by either or, when in reality they're both working at the same restaurant for the same boss.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like they're being paid by the same people. They're funding the same genocide. Like I said, Joe Biden, his entire career is marked by support of Israel.
Yeah.
That's like all he's done his whole career, and yet they want to write love letters to him. They want to write
Oh
love
my
letters to the guy that like,
god.
you know, the second link that I sent you, that's the it's you see the blow up chicken?
What in the hell?
That's their activism. That's their meaningful change. Like, oh my god, it was so bizarre and so mind-boggling to me. Like, I I don't even like you're seeing it. Like, imagine seeing this in person and having these people tell you that like it doesn't matter that you like nearly got killed because you're a Russian asset or something. Like, and yet this is what they're doing. Like, you're an American asset. You're an asset for the imperial system that we live under. You're not doing anything serious. You're not like I'm betting you that for this rally they chased homeless people away from the block that they were doing it on. Like I'm betting you that happened, without like actually providing anything because near that block underneath the bridge we've handed out supplies to people, and there was
Yeah.
nobody there during the event. So I am betting you that they chase these people out because they
Yeah.
don't see them as human beings and they're not actually doing anything. And all they care about is making themselves feel better by putting Trump in a chicken costume and just like I said, I didn't even want to go, but the Palestinian organization was there, and I thought, I'll show support because like I care about that, and yet the Palestinian organization was there with another Zionist organization, so like even that was basically ineffective because like they didn't really say much, they didn't really do much. They're still organizing with Democrats, like they're not actually diverting their attention away from the system, diverting their power, their organizing power, their money, any of it away from the system. They're just trying to prop it up and like being like anti-communist and anti-Trump and then saying Trump's a communist, and it just none of it makes sense. There's no there's no actual critical thinking going on in these people's heads. They're scrolling on Facebook Reels and that's where they get their politics from. That's where they get their hate from. That's why they think it's fine to kill and like attempt to murder Russian Ukrainian people. Like Jody Miller, the organizer of the event, she or Joni Miller, she She straight up has like a I support Ukraine like thing in her bio on Facebook, and I'm like, well, you have somebody that is Ukrainian. My family's in Kiev, my family is in Crimea, and yet you don't care to listen to them. You care to listen to the American empire and NATO, and America's only there to get the minerals that are in the Donbass region. So, like, you say you're anti-oligarchy, you're anti-corruption, you're anti-fascism, but you're pro-United States. The entire event, they were trying to, like, get as many American flags as they could because they didn't want to be anti-American, and I'm like, "Well, you can't not be anti-American if you want real change. The American empire is a scourge upon this earth. It is destroying the earth. The bombs that we're providing are accelerating climate change. Like the destruction of the American empire has to be our primary goal, because until we do that, we can't really change anything else. You can't reform it. You can't reform an imperial empire into fixing itself. Lenin understood that. We understand that. We get that, like, this empire isn't just going to change. That's why they didn't organize within the State Duma during before 1917. That's why they specifically did not go to the State Duma. That's why they were doing and building that dual power that was separate, completely separate from the imperial system. But these people are just like bootlickers essentially. They're bootlickers who want to feel good about what they're doing, and they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. They're just supporting the United States.
Yeah. There's this tweet that I want to end with, and this actually is very apropos. Shout out to one of the members in my mutual aid org, my one of the fellow members of the mutual aid org I'm part of. She sent
The
this
freedom fighters or the food freedom fighters?
Freedom Feeders.
Yeah,
He's
freedom
one. He's
fighters.
part of the Orlando RBN mutual aid chapter.
Cool.
But this was from my commie friend and homie Sabiha. She sent this, and this person Iman Abdullah Abdulhadi says it is worse than Gaza being starved and destroyed and no one cares. It's that hundreds of millions do care and are powerless to stop it. We need a world where that can never happen, where the masses actually have political power. So basically, that's exactly the what we have going on right now, is that there are many people who care. It's just the political power doesn't exist. It's not that it's weakened. It just doesn't exist.
We don't have any say in
And
what's happening.
yeah, yeah,
Like we don't. It's all the money, it's all the billionaires, and it's all the Democrats and the Republicans who are the ones that have a say in it, and they're, the powerful elite, and it just and it's crazy that, like, people are straight up just bootlicking them like crazy and thinking that, like, the Democrats are the better option. They're just they just want female drone pilots. They just want, like, a rainbow flag on the bomb.
yeah,
That's the only difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. The only difference is that they want more female drone pilots, that they want rainbow flags on their bombs, that they want a trans person, like, flying the bomber, that's killing, Palestinians, and, like, that's the only difference between them that I can see. Otherwise, they're the exact same organization, they're the exact same people, they want the exact same thing.
definitely, definitely. So look, my last question regarding the subject is: are you okay?
I'm very lucky. I have a wonderful comrade who I live with, and she's been my rock. I have come into her room many times at like midnight, 1 a.m., crying about this, crying about what happened, feeling essentially worthless, that like people don't want me alive because of where my family's from.
Well,
Um, and
I know about that.
that's, yeah, I mean, yeah, like, and it just, it took a while for me to like come to terms with it, but I'm very, very glad that I have people that are supporting me here and that are here for me, like, in the middle of the night when I'm, like, scared and, struggling and just, like, wanting to cry, and just telling me that it's okay, that they're here for me, that they're gonna be by my side, and that they support me, and, I'm very lucky in that sense.
Yeah. Thank you very much for giving us, what the account of what happened to you, and
Thank you for
we
giving me
are
a platform. Nobody
definitely,
else has. Nobody's even answered my emails to get the footage. It just
yeah, yeah. Well, we have to stand together and fight against the system as much as we possibly can.
yeah.
Of course, I put the link to the website as well as
Thank
the
you.
Cash App so that they can give any assistance to the work that you're doing out there in
I
Iowa.
I would really appreciate that because we're trying to get duffel bags and sleeping bags right now, and those get kind of expensive.
Yeah,
Even working in healthcare, I can't really afford all of this on my own.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So thank you very much for that. You said that you are also able to stay for the next segment.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I have a lot to say on that too.
All right. So, with that being said, everybody go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much for that. It's deeply appreciated so that you guys can be able to elevate this stream so that we may be able to reach more people and have more conversations like these. So, thank you very much for that. By the way, we'll be getting into the chat in a little bit. Um, I did a fumble. Let me get this up because I want to make sure that I do my patron shout out before we continue on because that's also really important too. Because without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. And well, if I can't do this work, well, we're all lost.
Yeah.
So let's do the patron shout out really quick. So thank you and shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. And here are the tiers. So we have Mega Jaybefaunters. All right, thank you so much. We have Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters. We have Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And I thanked this person last time, but thank you to all future members. Appreciate it so much. Without you guys, we would not be able to keep the lights on. And just as an aside to let you guys know, of course, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So let's go into the comments and then we shall move on to the next segment. So we have Edward Cortez coming in saying, "What's up, JB? Good to see you." We have continuing says the Democrats are no different than the Republicans. The Blues are just as evil as the Reds. We have CBC voters saying happy Tuesday at JB. Good to see you. We have Terry Connolly coming in saying greetings, JB and comrades. Roger Meadows says, if you and Sab haven't picked out your Thursday show topic, I'd love to see your opinions on Billboard's top 75 greatest R&B singers of all time. Sab gave me a biased millennial opinion on why Usher being 14 was justified. It might be, baby. It might be. All right. We have Amy coming in saying, good day, all. Thank you very much. Edward says, I admire Lex and other activists who are risking so much because of free speech being suppressed. So you got some love in there as well. We have Amy saying Dems threw their doors open wide for moderate Republicans, and now this is what we get. Amy continues, says a former friend of mine went full John Bircher, calling Putin's you know what and China's you know what, and then cussed me out for challenging him. With them friends like these, amen, amen. Sean coming in saying Lex seems to be a sweetheart and it's shame that people take the violent approach to claim they know her life entirely. That is very true. A lot of times people don't want to talk, and then when people respond, they listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. Um, Roger says, too late, JB. My former governor let the cat out of the bag, and I just broke the back of the narrative with the media ignoring most Jewish New Yorkers are anti-Zionist. Check DM. Ooh. Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of Jewish people are actually anti-Zionist, which is very heartening to say. And then we also have our lovely Zoya coming in saying we all hate capitalism, even the people who call it communism. Zoya is also from your neck of the woods out there in Eastern Europe too. So say hello to Zoya. All right. All right. So let me go to this really quick. What in the world did you say, Roger? Um, Oh, okay. There was this tweet. I'm kind of curious about this. What have you shared with me, Roger? He said, finally, someone from this establishment finally says what we've all been saying this time. When they were tried to peddle the narrative that Zionists within the Jewish community were the majority, where anti Palestinian views centered around pushing a narrative of everything you say against the state of Israel is anti Semitic. Cuomo exposed them. Turns out Zionists within the Jewish community weren't the majority, but just the loudest. Oh, snap! Oh, my goodness. It says Lee Cuomo admits Jews overwhelmingly pro Zorhan. Oh my goodness. Oh my stars and straps. Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that later. That's gonna be a good one. Because a lot of them, they see look, they when they said never again, a lot of people who are Jewish meant it. They said never again for nobody. It's just the Zionists who are in the minority, they're the loud minority, but they're the minority going, oh, well, it's just never again for us. And it's like, no, 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 no. It's never again for everybody. Oh, thank you so much for that, Jim, Roger. Appreciate it. Let's go into, let's do a couple more. You see. I saw one about Ozzy Osbourne. Did you say Ozzy Osbourne passed at 76 years old? That's crazy. I didn't know that happened. Do All Things with Love says RBN should have on Dimitri Laskaris on to talk about journalist Laith Marouf. He is in danger in Lebanese military custody. Never heard of Dimitri Laskaris, but that sounds really interesting. I'm not sure about Laith Marouf. But that will be interesting discussion to have. Thank you very much. I don't have the contact information for Dimitri Laskaris, so have to look into that. But thank you very much for that. So let's get into the next subject here. I would like to get into. So we're going to be getting into healthcare, folks, because this actually happened. I saw this story first being discussed by Kit Cabello on Hardlands Media, but I wanted to get my perspective on these things. So, of course, first we had talked to Lex, who was assaulted by Democrats in Iowa. And so we had that discussion, especially about how the Democratic Party really are really ineffectual, but that's ineffectual on purpose. And so it's really just a team sports at this very juncture. But next, we're going to be talking about physicians being frustrated. So we can get into this. When it regards to United Healthcare, this is disgusting. So we're going to be getting into this. So there was a physician that actually has gone viral for her phone call. And this is a phone call that she had that I think is, it shows how bad the private health insurance industry really is. And it's really just a money making scheme in order to take as much money out of our pockets while denying us care. And, let me ask you first, Lex, as far as your opinion goes, what was your reaction in December of last year when you found out about the alleged shooter, Luigi Mangione, gunning down Brian Thompson?
I mean, I understand that terrorism isn't a way of getting effectual change, but it is a way of showing that the people are fed up, that patients are fed up, that physicians are fed up, that everybody that's actually involved in this, that's not just taking money out of people's hands in the insurance companies, is fed up with this system that's not working and that is specifically made to deny care. And the way that people rallied around him was honestly incredible. I mean, it truly it opened my eyes a lot to the fact that I wasn't the only one that was seeing these issues, that it wasn't just like the patients that I was interacting with day to day, that it was everybody. All of us can see it. And, somebody finally did something. Um, and it really, I don't know, it brought to life a movement that kind of died after Bernie lost, for like universal healthcare and such. And I mean, I was just like really shocked that somebody actually did something finally, and that it brought people all over together.
Yeah, it's crazy because when people like Ben Shapiro were rebuking people for really having kind of a Schadenfreude type of response to Brian Thompson being gunned down, they he basically tried to give a rebuke to people, and many people in his comments were clapping back at him, saying, "You're absolutely wrong. We all feel the exact same way in regards to this healthcare system." So I want to share this really quick because I want to share where it starts, and then I want to go to where it continues. So this is Dr. Elizabeth Potter, a surgeon. So I want to get to this viral video that happened here first, and then we will get into the follow up with the phone call. So let's get into this first.
It's 2025 and insurance just keeps getting worse. I just did 2 bilateral deeps and 2 bilateral tissue expanders for patients. And I've never had this happen before, but during the second deep, I got a phone call into the operating room saying that United Healthcare wanted me to call them about one of the patients who was having surgery today, who was actually asleep having surgery. And, said I had to call right now. So I scrubbed out of my case and I called United Healthcare, and the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, do you understand that she's asleep right now and she has breast cancer? And the gentleman said, actually, I don't. That's a different department that would know that information. And I was like, well, she does need to stay overnight tonight. And you have all the information with you because I got approval for this surgery, and I need to go back and be with my patient now. But yeah, it's out of control. Insurance is out of control. I have no other words. It's 2025 and insurance just keeps getting worse.
So essentially, a physician was in the middle of surgery. The patient was under anesthesia, and the insurance company calls into the operating room, stopping her from conducting the surgery in order to check, is this person really covered? Even though they approved it. Please react, please.
Honestly, it's not a surprise. I mean, I work in dental, so that's a little bit of a different beast when it comes to insurance, arguably far worse than medical insurance, but, like, that's not that's not abnormal, you know? Things that they say they're gonna cover that they refuse to cover for X, Y, or Z reason after it's done, you know? Oftentimes, they just deny it, and then all the money gets, like, the patient has to pay it, and the patient can't pay that kind of money because our healthcare system is a bunch of different companies that are all working together to price gouge physicians, to price gouge the cost of care, and to make it impossible for the average person to actually afford anything. And the more that they do this, the more they're killing workers, the more they're disabling workers and making it harder for us all to fight back. We had a mass disabling event that led to an insane rise of eugenics within the general population. I mean, they were fine with killing the elderly, they were fine with killing the disabled, and we're seeing the effects of that now. We're seeing the fact that, United Healthcare is denying basic care. Like my own medication, I have a rare condition that I need to take medication for. I haven't gotten it covered since the beginning of this year. So I have been off of my medication and I have been getting sicker. And, you know, there's nothing I can do about it, despite the fact that, I've appealed it, that my doctor has appealed it, and they want us dead. They don't want to pay for your care, and they want you dead. That's the end all be all, because the less people that there are for them to take care of, the less they have to pay. The more people that they can kill through denying care, the less they have to pay, the more profit that they make from, these concierge patients, these rich patients that actually make money and can pay for private insurance and all of that. Like within dentistry, I assume all of you have had at some point dental insurance. It takes 6 to 12 months to actually get any procedures covered. You have to pay for insurance for almost a year, half a year to an entire year, to get a filling or a crown covered. You're paying for the insurance, but it's not covering anything. All it's covering is your cleanings. So if you actually have stuff to do in your mouth, they're just going to straight up deny it until you've already had it for a year. Like, how is that? How does that work? How does that make any sense at all? Like, to me, it makes no sense. You're paying for insurance, but it's not covering anything. Then why are you paying for it? You know, why are you paying for insurance if it's gonna call in the middle of your surgery and tell you that you might not be covered or that it's not necessary, despite you having cancer, despite the fact that you're already like under anesthesia? That's absurd to me. But that is the state of insurance within our current system. That is what insurance is made to do. It is made to deny you care. It is specifically made so that you cannot afford to live. I mean, most people in debt are in debt because of medical debt. I'm in debt because of medical debt, and I work in healthcare. How is that fair? Why can't I afford to get a filling done? Like, I know I have a cavity. I can't afford to get a filling done despite working in dentistry. How does that make sense? I have to rely off of the fact that, hope that whatever doctor I get to work for when I get a job up here is going to do it for free for me. Like, because I can't afford to pay for dental insurance that isn't going to cover it for another 12 months, because at that point, my cavity is going to be so big that I'm going to need a root canal, which is $1,500 to $3,000. But I can afford that. Nobody can. None of my patients can.
Yeah. It's also wild how we have insurances that separate the eyes and the mouth from the rest of the body.
Oh my God. So your mouth is the entry point for everything that goes into your body. If there is bacteria in your mouth, if you have periodontal disease, you are more at risk for diabetes. You're at higher risk for heart disease. You're at higher risk for developing certain kinds of infections. You can get sepsis and die from an infection in your mouth. There is a massive nerve and a big blood supply that goes straight up to your brain and down to your heart. If you get bacteria into your bloodstream, get sepsis, it's a lot easier to get sepsis from your mouth than it is to get from a cut on your finger. It has so much closer to your heart to travel, and they don't care. They don't care that these things can kill people. And I've always said that your class status signifies, like, your dental health signifies more to me about your class status in your childhood than it does about anything else about you as a person. And dentists will sit here and blame patients. They will sit here and, patients that can't afford insurance or can't afford healthcare with insurance, they get mad at the patient and they blame the patient for not taking care of their health. When in reality, these people just can't afford it because it is $3,000. And with dental insurance, unlike health insurance, with dental insurance, once you hit your out-of-pocket maximum, insurance stops paying. Unlike health insurance, where once you hit your out-of-pocket maximum, everything's covered at 100%, typically. That's crazy. Why are there two different systems of insurance for dental and for healthcare? Why is the insurance that I'm paying for my healthcare not covering one of arguably the most important parts? Because, like, if you don't have teeth, you're not able to get adequate nutrition. You're not able to get fiber and protein into your body, and that is a detriment to your health.
Yeah.
They are more interested in pulling teeth and making people incapable of getting proper nutrition, which is then killing them early. Patients are going home with massive infections, unable to afford care, and then going to the hospital and getting a bunch of ER bills where all they give them is some antibiotics and some opiates, and that's it, and send them home. And then, they come to the dentist and they can't afford care there either. So they're just getting into more and more and more debt. And, there's all these different things like care credit, or like all of these like different credit cards that you can take out to pay for healthcare. But like, none of that is actually doing anything. People can't afford care. People are dying because of this, like actively dying because of this. And, people, like, doctors see it, patients see it, and yet there's this like horrible, awful middleman that's, not like, you're paying for it. Why isn't it covering the treatment that the doctor says is medically necessary? Why is some guy that's not a dentist, that's not a doctor, that didn't go to school, making these decisions? They don't even like, and they have all these different like, you have to call and you have to like sit on the phone for like 6 hours to actually get through to a real person. And it just, it's all meant so that they don't cover care. It's all meant to straight up kill you. Like like that that's what it is. It is straight up eugenics. They want the disabled people dead. They want people to like lose their ability to function within society. And they can keep making workers and they can keep disabling workers, and as long as they're making a profit from it and not having to pay for the care, then they're not going to change anything, and nothing's going to change. Like, killing one CEO isn't going to change anything. They're going to put another CEO in place. We have to tear this thing down.
Yeah.
That's the only solution, is tearing everything down, because all of this is meant and created to suppress us and to keep us from accessing the care that we really, really need. They see sick people as surplus. They were fine with killing us during COVID. They were fine with continuing to kill us. I mean, if we look at COVID, it is still a thing. It is still a thing that is disabling and killing people to this day. And yet they don't care about it because they needed to push us all back to work to get a profit. And and then they just like healthcare, because they realize that, they can do that. They realize that they don't have to cover anything, and that it's easier to just let people die. And like it just, it's bizarre. It's a way of, if you're fighting for basic care, then you can't fight against the system. If you're fighting to get your care covered, to try and, get out of pain or survive or like anything. Like, I assume everybody's here has had a cavity. That shit hurts. That shit hurts really bad. People are going to pay any amount of money, take out any amount of loans, any amount of credit to actually pay for stuff to get a tooth pulled, because it hurts so bad. There's so many nerves up in your face that, like, yeah, and it just, they don't care. And the way that our medical and dental school system is set up, it's set up to put doctors in debt. That way they are only focusing on the money and not patient care, so that they perpetuate this system. Because, unlike in the Soviet Union where all care was free, you know, like, my family's from the Soviet Union. My grandfather died because he died in 2022 because he had not been to the doctor since 1991. Since the collapse, the illegal dissolution of the Soviet Union, where healthcare was free, where my mom got free healthcare for her scoliosis, where my grandma got free healthcare, where my dedushka got free healthcare. And, once that illegal dissolution happened, then everybody had to pay for it. People stopped going and people started dying. That's exactly what they're doing here, is they're trying to kill workers so we can't come together, so we can't rise up, and we can't actually attack the people in charge. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling, and we need to seriously talk about this, because, you know, it's not just about like medications and surgeries, it's also about like the social determinants of health. You know, we need community. A lot of healthcare outcomes are often more determined by social determinants than they are by medical determinations. The community, the clean air is health. Housing is health. Not having mold in your bathroom that you're exposed to every single day and breathing in spores, that is health. Housing is health. All of this has to be taken into account. But if we break up all these systems into these little chunks that are ineffective, and like, you know, it just, it makes it so inefficient and so difficult for patients to access care that it just kills them. It is just killing people. And like, it is a eugenics movement. And like, the only way to combat this is universal healthcare for everybody. Healthcare that, like, not the system that they have in the UK where you can opt out and have private healthcare that's so much better than the universal, like, public healthcare. It needs to be everybody is getting the same level of healthcare. Everybody is getting it. The doctors are directly paid by the state. They will always do the procedures because they know that they're going to get paid. They don't have that risk of not getting paid. They use their medical knowledge to make decisions, and they know that they're going to get paid. They know that the treatment's going to get covered. And that's the only way that we can combat this, because straight up, like, the system is created, like, it's all intertwined. It is all, like, health is very complicated, and breaking it down into these like parts, it doesn't make sense. And the only reason why they would do that is to kill people. you know?
Yeah. So I want to get into this part because as a medical professional, you're going to see this and it's going to be even more egregious in fact because I might need to pause at specific points. I'm going to make sure I have this. Hang on. All right. So let me put this in here. I want to be able to pause, and for some reason, when you go straight through TikTok, you're unable to pause the videos, which I'm like, TikTok, come on, tighten up, do better. But all right, so let me see if I can do this here. All right. Yay. Okay, got it. Okay. All right, so let me share my screen and then we'll get into this. And please feel free to tell me to pause if you want to interject something from what is being said, because this is also this is going to be not really long, but it's going to be more a little bit lengthier of a video. So we'll get into this right now.
Hello, this is Dr. Elizabeth Potter. Who is this? Who am I speaking with? Can you not, sorry, there's also another wet. So you have two doctors on the call. Will either of you give me your name or MPI number or license number? The reference number for the call, but you won't give me your name or number, and neither will the doctor from Texas. Okay, please give me the reference number. Okay, and is the doctor from Texas? Would that person speak up, please? I'm good. Are you a plastic surgeon? What do you mean subspecialty plastics? I'm a plastic surgeon. I wouldn't say subspecialty. So you're an oculoplastic surgeon. What was your initial training in? So we're speaking about lymphedema of the arm. So this is not an area that you're familiar with, correct? Oh, okay. Still practicing, but you won't give me your name? But you're my colleague in plastic surgery, and you won't give me your name. Yeah, I don't understand how it's connected. I understand that the CEO was murdered, right? But I'm your peer, and I want to have a conversation with a peer about a patient who has breast cancer and lymphedema, and I would like to know your name. How do I know who you...
That's crazy. Like, don't you want to give their name?
That's, they pay these people and like it's all about the money. They're paying these people so that like they can essentially be traitors to their profession and work for these insurance companies, Like oh God, the entire system is made so that they don't pay for care. That's like the exact thing. Like it is specifically created for this. And like these doctors that are working for the insurance companies are traitors. They're traitors to their profession and they don't care about patients. They only care about the money that they're making from their getting paid by these insurance companies. Like follow the money. Somebody that's being paid by an insurance company has a vested interest in denying care and making money for that insurance company because that's how it works. Like even the dentists that work for like Delta Dental, they're the same way, So like even if you get a doctor on the phone, they are they are meant to make it so that you can't get your care done because they are essentially bribed to deny care. That's what they're being paid for.
Wow. Okay, let's continue. Let's go back just a little bit.
How do I know who you are? How do I know that you're board certified and that you're a microsurgeon? Like, how do I verify that? I'm just trying to make sure that I'm talking to an expert in this procedure with training that's commensurate with that. How do I verify that? So I can get your name from United Healthcare through this reference number. I'm so sorry that this is to protect you as a doctor. I'm really trying just to do the right thing as a patient. And I also personally have been subject to, threatening communication as well. I just want this to be the right thing. Okay. So I'm just going to have to trust you. You were asking me as a representative of United to trust you that you're a plastic surgeon and fellowship trained in microsurgery. So, okay.
Trust me, bro. Trust
It could be
me.
anybody. It could be anybody on the other side. That doesn't. There's a reason why we have NPI numbers. There's a reason why doctors have to link it to their license. There's a reason for this, and it's so that they can't just do stuff like this, because that could just be some random guy. That could just be some guy saying he's a doctor. If they can't prove it, then why are they making these health decisions? That's and it's to protect you as a doctor. I've been threatened by patients because patients are getting denied care. I've been threatened by patients. They still know my name. You know, the people
You
that are
know,
actually working in healthcare, we're the ones that are getting threatened by our patients because their healthcare is denied, and it's not my fault. I'm not making the decisions, but I'm the face. I'm the person that they are interacting with. So they're going to take their anger out on me, and I understand that, and I never hold it against a patient. But these people sit here in their, CEO and in their massive, buildings, and they make decisions that affect real people, and yet they can't even say their names. They can't even tell us who they are that are making these decisions. That's crazy. That's insane. Mind-boggling, truly.
please let me know if this is insensitive when I say this, and if it is, then I do apologize. But my message to private insurance companies is, if you want people to stop their lives from being threatened, then stop denying care.
Yeah, no, that's not insensitive at all. That's basically what, if you care about healthcare workers, then you will not put us in situations where patients are getting angry at us because we are the face of the healthcare system to them.
I'm
Most patients don't understand the intricacies of healthcare, and I don't expect them to. I don't want them to, and I don't expect them to, and they shouldn't have to. All they should have to do is come, tell us what's wrong, have us fix it, and then know that it's going to be covered. And us complicating it to this point is why patients are, physically attacking doctors, physically attacking nurses. That's why this is happening. That's why healthcare is so dangerous. It's not because, I mean, there's dangerous patients in general, like mental health issues and all of that, but a lot of these people are just angry because they're getting killed by this, and they know that. And the only recourse that they have is yelling at us about it, you know?
Yeah. Uh, I'm gonna give a word of advice to these insurance companies. This word of advice is a phrase that comes out of the Black community. Don't let your mouth write a check that your ass can't cash.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
let's continue.
they
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just this is I I just I can't fathom, working in insurance and just they're so divorced from the patient experience and the patient care process that they're making all of these decisions, and they're not even putting their name to it. They're not even putting their name to it. So you don't even know who's making the decision, and that is on purpose. That is so that we can't actually hold anybody accountable for the decisions that they're making.
Wow. Yeah, that's the sad part. Let's continue on. It keeps going.
Trained in microsurgery. So, okay, I'll trust you there. So, do you perform lymphovenous bypass? Have you performed it yourself for patients with lymphedema? Have you performed it yourself? So, have you been the primary surgeon in evaluating and performing lymphovenous bypass for a patient? Even one. You have not. Okay.
So they're tasking doctors who aren't even proficient at the procedure that's supposed to be approved in order to approve a procedure? That's
How are
like
these people?
wait, that's like asking that's like asking someone who is a baker to judge whether a butcher cut proper cuts of steak and pork.
The same thing
Like,
happens in
wait a
dentistry.
minute.
They hire general
I know
dentists to
about
make.
flour, I know about butter, sugar, vanilla extract, fruits, and all these other things. But when you're asking a baker to judge whether the cuts that are made from livestock is the right cuts, that don't make no sense. Yeah, they're both involved in food, but it's different sectors. There's levels to this shit. And this is what gets on my nerves with these healthcare industry. They're like, well, it's just a doctor. It's like, wait, if I play a doctor on TV, does that mean I get to tell doctors exactly what they should be approved of or not?
We have the same issue in dentistry. There's subspecialties, um,
Oh my god.
and they have general dentists making decisions for oral surgeons or making
Oh
decisions
my
about
god.
whether braces are medically necessary, you
Oh
know?
my.
It's or, like, they have doctors making decisions about endodontics. Endodontics, that's root canals. And, like, they have general doctors who are, like, general dentists who are performing, fillings and crowns and restorative procedures, making decisions why a patient can have a root canal or not. And yes, a general dentist can perform a root canal, but if an endodontist is saying this patient needs a root canal, then who are you as a general dentist to argue with that? Who are you to argue with a person that then went on to do 2 to 4 years of extra residency to learn how to do this treatment day in and day out? Who are you to be saying that because you do, like, what, 1 to 5 root canals a year? Like, no. It's and the fact that they're not even giving their names and they haven't done these surgeries and, like, they don't know about this procedure. The body is so complicated. That's why we have all these specialties and subspecialties and these residencies and all of that because one person can't learn everything about the body. Nobody can. There's so, so, so much. That's why we have different doctors and different specialties. So why are we putting people that aren't the specialty into decision-making positions? That's wrong. That's like, of course these people are gonna deny care because they don't actually know why it's important. Like, they've done everything to make it so that they can deny all of the care that you need and kill you, you know?
Yeah. Just because they're a doctor doesn't mean they're the right doctor.
I wouldn't trust I no offense, I would not trust an endodontist to do my implant. I wouldn't trust an endodontist to do my implant because the endodontist is working on doing root canals every day. They don't know shit about planting implants into your mouth. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
trust
wouldn't trust
that.
the OBGYN to do anything involving
Heart
urology
surgery
on
or
me.
anything, like, you know, like you can't expect somebody that's specialized in one part of the body to make decisions about another part of the body. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. And that's why there's so many subspecialties. That's why there's people that are specialized in different conditions. That's why
Yeah,
there's people that are specialized. And that's why doctors are making the best decisions for their patients. They are intimately aware of
yeah,
what their patients have, what their patients need, and the fact that, like, some other doctor that hasn't even done that procedure is making that decision, that's mind-boggling, that's crazy.
yeah.
That
That's like a friend of mine who's a physician in palliative care, and she deals with people who are more at end of life. Why would you take somebody who's in palliative care, caring for people at end of life, and then say, okay, now we're going to put you in services being a pediatrician?
it's not their specialty. It's
Different
they
specialties.
specialize for a reason. These people go to school for years, years and years to specialize in specific body parts. The learning system is so, so rigorous, and yet why is somebody who has never even done a procedure making the decision about that procedure? That's insane. That's just not how life works. That's not how the body works. Nobody like, I wouldn't want to be making decisions about anything to do with anything other than the mouth. I only know about the mouth. I don't know anything about the eyes. I don't know anything about, like, the heart or anything. Like, I mean, I
Yeah,
know, like, the basics that I need to know for, like, working in dental, but, like, I would never trust myself to make a decision about, like, a lumpectomy or whatever procedure she's talking about because I don't know anything about that. Just because I
yeah,
work in healthcare doesn't mean that I know everything about health. That's not how life works. That's not how bodies work, and that's not how it should work.
yeah. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is so crazy.
We're
I would
only
be
2
pulling my
minutes in.
hair out if I was this doctor.
Okay. do you treat patients with breast cancer currently and do microsurgery like deep flaps or lymph node transfers or lymphovenous bypass? You have a cosmetic practice currently. Okay. Do you do microsurgical? Okay. Do you do microsurgical breast reconstruction currently? So you're not doing microsurgical breast reconstruction currently or treating patients with lymphedema currently. Okay. So the patient that we're talking about is a physician, and she is going to have an axillary dissection and radiation. And her risk of lymphedema is, I'm assuming you know. Do you know? Do you know what the No, it's important. The specifics are important. Do you know the specific risk, like the documented risk for her? Like the percentage risk of lymphedema? No. She absolutely will need radiation. If she's having an axillary dissection, she's going to have radiation. No, so she's been to see us in clinic. She's had further evaluation. She is going to be having an axillary dissection and will need radiation. So do you know what her risk of lymphedema is? Well, I mean, I think if this is part of the issue. If you're my peer, then I think you should be able to answer that question, because that's an important statistic, certainly for my patients who have lymphedema. So her risk of getting lymphedema is 40%. And we have the ability to reduce that to 10% using a lymphovenous bypass. And that's the information that I want you to carry back to United. And I will do the appeals and all of that. But that's the piece of information that I want you to have going forward. So you don't have the ability to approve it in your role. Okay, this patient I'll appeal. Again, I appreciate your time. I don't think you're my peer in this area. I don't think that you had the specific details around this procedure. You haven't performed it yourself as a primary surgeon, and you're not actively treating these patients with microsurgery. But I appreciate your time and calling, and I'll continue to reach back out to United. You too. Thanks.
This is insane. I did also want to mention the comment from Cobra Commander. Plastic surgeons do treat cancer. They are often one of the treating doctors for cancer. That's part of like their specialty is, you know, like because like when you're removing like tumors and such, you have to be able to like get the cosmetic portion of it together as well. So they are they are they are treating it, but like not every plastic surgeon is going to be a plastic surgeon that treats cancer same way. Not every oral surgeon is going to be an oral surgeon that treats cancer patients. Some of them are specialized in different things, even though they have the same overarching like treatment. They subspecialize underneath that.
Yeah. So it basically is there's ones who do like reconstructive surgery for medically necessary means versus ones who do it for cosmetic, right?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
somebody who does a
Exactly.
rhinoplasty for cosmetic reasons is different than somebody who has to do plastic surgery to repair a deviated septum,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. So like, there's doctors that are primarily in the cosmetic industry, and the same thing happens in dentistry. I mean, it's not it's not a real specialty yet, but there's like cosmetic dentists that primarily, and yeah, you would see a radiologist first, but this patient clearly has gone through that, and this patient is a physician that has gone through the point where like now she's with a plastic surgeon who's doing that breast reconstruction and removing that breast tissue, because like it's a plastic surgeon's also doing top surgery and stuff, so doing a double mastectomy, um that's a typical procedure for a plastic surgeon to be doing, because like that is their specialty. You wouldn't want like a cardiovascular surgeon to be doing your double mastectomy, because they're not specialized in that, and they wouldn't be able to get you a good closure or anything. um they're probably not good at as great as doing like sutures, because like they're dealing with like internal body systems versus external ones. It just medical, that's why it's so complicated. That's why even though they're both plastic surgeons on the call, supposedly one of them won't even give they won't even give their phone number or license or anything, but supposedly they're both plastic surgeons, and one is primarily treating cancer patients and the other one is doing a cosmetic practice. So like that is something that just because people have specialties that don't like intuitively seem to connect, that doesn't mean that their specialty doesn't actually like deal with these kinds of patients. But like that's how these insurance companies get away with it. That's how they get away with it. They get these people that have never done these procedures, that have never interacted with patients like this, and then they make those decisions without any actual knowledge. Like the guy can't even provide information about, how much the percentage of this woman developing lymphedema is. And lymphedema is a very disabling condition. The swelling of your body parts, the inability, like people can lose, ability to like move their limbs because they're so swollen. And, it just, it's crazy that like they can't even answer basic questions and they're calling themselves peers when they're not peers. They're not specialists in the same thing. They're simply just, doctors of another specialty of a different name. Like, sure, if this guy was making decisions about whether or not to cover like a breast enhancement, I'd trust his decision there because he's a like plastic surgeon. But, this woman is like a cancer plastic surgeon or subspecializes in cancer in some capacity. So I would trust her decision making about this specific patient and over any other physician unless they have the exact same specializations and are treating patients of a similar caliber. And if they're not even willing to provide their names or their license numbers, then they shouldn't be making decisions. You should have to, like, I have to put my name to all of the notes that I write, and I don't even have like a license that can be, you know, like I don't have a license that's able to be like really taken away from me because I'm working underneath the doctor. But despite that, my name is still there. My patients are seeing my face. They know that I'm there helping them. I don't want some nameless, faceless physician making decisions for my patients. They don't even see the x-rays. They don't even see any of this. And they're, even if they did, they're not able to actually like accurately tell what the patient's risk is, what the patient needs. Only the doctor that is like intimately familiar with the patient's experience is the one that should be making the decisions. It's not some random person that is being paid to deny care, because that's what they are. They're paid to deny care, and they should not be making these decisions. They should not be doing this. And the fact that our system has allowed this is crazy to me. And like the reason they allow this is because the sicker workers are, the more disabled we are by COVID, the more disabled we are by denied care, the less energy and the less power that we have to fight against it. You know, that's like it's basically explicitly the reason why these systems exist, is to deny care and to make it more difficult for members to get their care covered. And I mean, like, we fight all the time with insurances. We're calling them and we're being like, who actually denied this care? We sent the x-rays. You can see that the filling, like that the cavity is like huge in the tooth. They obviously need a root canal. And then they're like, oh, well, you can try just doing a filling. And it's like halfway into the pulp cavity, which if you do a filling on the pulp cavity, that person's going to be in severe, severe pain. So they need a root canal to remove the nerve so that they're not in pain. And yet they're like, well, you should try a filling first. And then if you try a filling and it doesn't, like, the patient has already used up $300 of their insurance to pay for that filling, but they only have a max of 1,000, which means that they only have like 700 left, you know? And then insurance will still deny it because they're like, oh, you already worked on this tooth this year. Like, it's straight up like all of these companies are made to deny you care. They're made to make you sicker. They're made, like, we saw it with COVID was a big catalyzing event for this, for allowing disabled people, allowing the elderly to die. And you know they started spreading all of this propaganda about like COVID being a scam and stuff, and
I
that.
have to be careful with the COVID
Oh, okay.
subject. Yeah, because YouTube will still like,
Really?
yeah, yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. I
Wow.
know.
But
Yeah, we have to talk about.
we
I don't
had a
even
mass.
use. I don't even use the c word. I just say
Okay, I
pandemic
will
because
stop
that's
using it
how
then.
bad it really is. Like there have
But
been channels that have been go through strikes and stuff because of it. It's wild.
then
You
that's
know.
what they're doing to kill everybody. They don't want you to have the ability to fight back. The more they disable you, the harder it is to fight back, and that is what they're doing. And it's all of these things, like they're getting doctors that aren't even specialized in these areas, and they're paying them, they're bribing them.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody's being
Ooh,
paid to deny care, then of course they're going to deny care. If their interest is in making the insurance company the most amount of money, then the way that they're going to do that is by collecting your premiums and then not actually paying for anything. That's how they make a profit. Because if they actually had to pay for care, then they wouldn't make a profit, and then
yeah.
the CEOs wouldn't make anything.
Yeah. And a lot of people, Lex, would ask, well, what is your solution then if we can't have privatized healthcare? Because we like our choices, we like our options to be able to choose which healthcare system, which private healthcare we want. What would be your answer to that?
A universal healthcare system, one that everybody is covered underneath the exact same, like, state-run institution. There is no private option, that it has to like, that doctors know that they're gonna be covered by the insurance companies because it is the state that is providing that care, similar to what they had in the Soviet Union, you know? Similar to what they have in other countries with healthcare where I mean, there's not almost all countries still have a private healthcare system, but that private healthcare system is what is causing all of these poor health outcomes, you know? And not just that, but also taking care of housing as part of health, taking care of clean air as part of health, clean water and food as part of health. You know, it's all intertwined, and it all has to be it all has to be taken in tandem together, that all of these things are determinants of health, and that these determinants of health are necessary to improve patient outcomes, to improve patient health, and that, like, it has to be paid universally, it has to be covering everybody equally. Otherwise, some people are going to get left behind, you know? That's if the I mean, okay, listen to this. How much are you gonna pay to get out of pain? How much are you gonna pay to not die? How much debt will you go into to get yourself out of severe pain? Like, I would pay anything. I would pay anything. If I'm in pain, I would pay anything, you know? Like, that's just like, most of my patients would pay anything to get out of pain. They would put themselves into severe debt to get out of pain, and people do. The greatest, debt, the greatest, reason for debt in the United States is healthcare. And that's because people will pay any amount to survive. Like, we are at the core self-preservatory creatures. We want self-preservation, and so we will pay anything. We will do anything to survive, and they know that, and they capitalize upon that. And it's it's frankly evil. It is so evil. It is it's disgusting, and it is something that we fight against every single day at work. Every single day we are fighting against this system that is straight up meant and designed to kill patients and to make it so that people can't survive, because if you die, they've collected all of your money and they never had to do anything with that money to pay for your healthcare. And so they've already gotten everything they can out of you, and so once they start denying that care, then you just die. They've already gotten all of that they can, and because they don't have to pay out anything to you, because they can deny it with these doctors that won't even say what their name is. It just it is straight up meant to kill you, and like, people need to understand that like, healthcare is one of the most important things. Like, healthcare disparity is one of the things that is destroying our world right now. It is it is something that is so necessary, that is so needed, like, and it's all intertwined, like, even if we had universal healthcare, if we don't have universal housing, if we don't have universal food or water and all of that, like, it just it that means that the that even if you get the medicine that you need, if you're drinking poisoned water, if you're breathing poisoned air, if you don't have a house, if you're exposed to the elements, that means that doesn't matter how much medicine you have. If you get surgery to remove something, I met a man while doing mutual aid who had gotten a surgery on his arm to remove a tumor, and then they just put him back out on the streets. And it got infected, and he has this massive infection on his arm, and everything's growing back because he's not actually getting any care right now. They just, they did what the bare minimum, and then they shoved him back out onto the streets. And you can't heal on the streets without good water, without good food, without like decent rest. All of that is necessary for health outcomes. And, because they've split all of this up and because they've cut it all apart and they've made the decision making parties not actually like have to deal with patients. These people are sitting there and they're on calls and they're making these decisions for the doctors that are actually like medically, like they have medically relevant training, and they're having these people that don't have medically relevant training making these decisions. It just doesn't make sense. It's not logical, it's not rational, and the only reason that I can think of is so that they can kill people. Like that's the only reason I can think of for why our system is like this. Because they get as much money out of you and then they kill you. And then they move on to the next person.
Yeah, that's the sick and twisted part of the system. And there's no reform in it. And one of my
No, there's
one
no
of
reforming
my
this.
radical opinions is that we should have a fully nationalized healthcare system.
Yeah,
And
I
a lot
don't
of
think
people
there's a radical
say,
opinion.
well, people say, well, we need Medicare for all. I'm like, no. I'm like, that's not good enough.
No.
Medicare for all is not good enough. Single payer healthcare is not good enough. I say we have no insurance, just healthcare.
Yeah.
Because, like, why are we sitting here trying to see, like, how are we going to pay for it? It's kind of interesting when people are like, well, how are you going to pay for it? Number one, if we didn't have to give all these subsidies to the fossil fuel companies, subsidies to big pharma, subsidies to all these big corporations that are harming our planet, then number one, we would actually have more money in our government, more federal dollars to be able to spend.
If we weren't giving billions of aid to Israel.
Yeah, we weren't giving billions of aid to Israel, right? If we weren't doing all that, then on top of that, if we weren't giving all these tax breaks to these billionaires and damn near trillionaires and 100 millionaires, then that would be also more money that's left over for us. And so therefore we can actually be able to afford it. But then on top of that, if you give universal housing, a housing first model, if you start to make sure that everybody has clean water, if everybody has a measure of healthy food for them to eat without ever having to go hungry, then that actually makes your healthcare outcomes even cheaper, because therefore,
yes,
they're less likely to have to use the healthcare facilities in order to be able to use them all that often. And a lot of times you get a lot of people who, especially who consider themselves to be conservative, go, well, if we give people universal health care, they're going to overuse it. I mean, you mean they're going to make themselves healthier?
Nobody's going to the doctor for fun. The doctor isn't a fun experience.
I sure as hell don't go to the doctor for fun.
Nobody's going to the doctor for fun.
Some twisted joy out of being stuck or getting a central line put in my neck? Trust me, I know. I've had it before. Do I get
I don't get joy from stabbing myself every month and making myself immunocompromised.
A line in here? Right? Do I enjoy being intubated? No. It's crazy. So why in the world are people it's wild. They're like, oh, they're going to use it too much. No, they're going to use it to the point where they actually are well taken care of. And that's what people don't want. Because here's the problem. I'm going to say it right now. Not you, but some people have the opinion that some humans are better than others. And so therefore, some people are considered more worthy,
inherently more deserving
life than the others. And that is bullshit, because every life is worth the same amount. Life is invaluable. All life is precious. And if you truly believe that, then that means that all people should have healthcare at the highest quality, no matter what. Therefore, they should not be paywalled to live. And that what makes me sick. And they're like, well,
straight up makes me nauseous.
They have to work for free? I'm like, no, we'll do it just like we do with all the. Look, how many of these people who work for the government that are paid handsomely for what they do, and they don't do a goddamn thing even worth a shit for us? Like,
yeah.
I'd rather pay doctors, nurses, techs, all these people in healthcare more than some of these politicians who say that they're with us, but then they'll actually do a damn thing for us. Let me give the money to the doctors. Let me give the money to the nurse practitioners. Let me give the people who actually clean the hospital rooms, who keep infectious rates down. Let me give the money to
They're
them instead.
just as
I'm not giving no
important.
money to damn Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Mitch McConnell. What the hell? And I
No,
damn sure ain't giving money to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or AOC. Get the hell out of here with that. I'd rather give it to people who's actually going to materially help me. I'm sorry to go off, but it just gets on my nerves.
no,
And
you're
I
right. And
used that
also,
3 months ago.
with health insurance being tied, like Vicky said in the comments, with health insurance being tied to your job, that is deliberate. That is meant to make it so that you cannot leave your job for another position because
Yes.
you are scared of losing your health coverage. Because if you have children, if you have disabled spouses, if you have anybody that is relying on your work for their health care, then you are trapped. You are trapped in you are trapped in a job, a dead-end job that is treating you like crap, and you can't leave because other people are relying on your health, or you're relying on the healthcare that you get from that position. And that is deliberate, that is intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, Amy. It does trap people suffering from domestic violence and abusive partners because their healthcare is tied to their abusive partner. You know, that is exactly correct. It is meant to keep people trapped. It is meant to kill people, and it is meant to make it so that we cannot fight back. And that's exactly the explicit purpose of the system is to make it so that we can't fight back, so that we're too sick to fight back. You know, and costs of health go up. Preventative health is a lot cheaper than doing expensive surgeries. It's the same in every single healthcare field. It's the same in dentistry. Preventative is so
Yeah.
much cheaper and so much easier than having to pay $3,000 for a root canal because you've let it go on for 2 years and now it's so painful and you're at risk of sepsis. And that's the explicit purpose of the system, is to make it so that we are trapped within our jobs, that we are trapped within the working conditions that we are born into. And so that we can't move, so that we can't do anything, because everything is tied to healthcare, everything is tied to insurance. And, you can't, and all the insurance is crap. I mean, it's all crap. You have to pay like what, $3,000 before it even kicks in? What? How is that fair? How is that? Why is that a thing? Why do you have to pay $3,000 before your insurance actually works? Why do you have to
Yeah.
wait a year before you can actually get a root canal? There's no logic behind it other than making profit.
Yeah.
And that's it.
You know, it's even cheaper. Making sure that everybody has healthy whole foods to eat so that their health is sustained, so that they wouldn't even have to go, so that when it comes to even just the maintenance part of healthcare, it goes a lot more smoothly,
I
right?
mean, I
So
live in Iowa where corn is grown, a lot of corn. And corn is subsidized. And, because corn is subsidized, they're putting all these corn byproducts into our food, high fructose corn syrup. That's not a natural ingredient. That is something that is a byproduct of corn processing. Um, and, if we actually grew stuff that was, actually native to where we're living, like Real is doing with the farm, and providing healthy food to people that live in the Orlando area, that is people wouldn't be getting heart disease as much if they weren't getting shoved full of high fructose corn syrup. Diabetes wouldn't be as big of an issue if people had access to healthy and nutritious food, if they had access to housing. People wouldn't be getting sick and have their immune system compromised because they're living on the streets. You know, that like if like when I lived in Orlando, I lived in student housing and there was straight up mold growing in my bathtub. And I got sicker. I got sicker because there was mold growing in my bathtub that I couldn't get rid of no matter how much I bleached it. You know? And if we took health holistically in its entirety, as housing, as food, as water, as air, all of that is part of healthcare. Heck, even community is part of healthcare. Straight up having somebody to listen to and talk to, that's part of healthcare. Having somebody that's there to take care of you when you're sick, that's part of healthcare. You know,
yeah,
it's not just the doctor and the surgeon, it's also the nurse or the CNA that is taking care of you post surgery, that is changing your diapers, that is changing your lines. All of that is part of healthcare. And
yeah,
yet, all of these auxiliary staff, they all of these auxiliary staff are being paid pennies, and they're often people of color, and they're often, you know, they're often people that are coming from immigrant communities. Within dental assisting, we see a lot of DAs are foreign doctors. They are doctors from other countries that came to the US for a better life, and then they get pushed into the same position that I'm in, and oftentimes because they're immigrants are getting paid less. I knew a woman from Ukraine, from the Donbas region, who came here, and she was getting paid $14 an hour for the same position that I was being paid $17 an hour. And she was an ENT doctor, a doctor who went to medical school, and she was getting paid less than I was. That is crazy. They are explicitly targeting women of color into these care positions where they're getting paid 12, 13, $14 an hour. I mean, like a lot of the people that are in the same job field that I'm in are often, people of color that like are immigrants that, or young women that are coming out of high school that are getting put into these schooling that is it costs like $25,000. I'm so serious. It's expensive to become a DA, and then they're getting paid $14 an hour, and they can never pay down their debt. And it's getting marketed as an easy job in healthcare when we're actually doing all of the labor. We're doing a lot of the labor to support everything, to support what the doctor has to do, and yet they're underpaying us, and they're not, and they're like tricking people into going to these incredibly expensive schools, and then they have to pay, like, and then they're stuck in debt, and they're trapped working in the same field forever, and like a lot of these positions are also disabling, doing manual labor, and that's what healthcare is. It is manual labor. It can disable you. Dental assistants have higher rates of deafness. They have higher rates of back injuries. They have higher rates of, disability in general, because like, you're hearing that drill all the time. And I know women that went partially deaf from it. I know women that have, you know, spines that are messed up, that have like, spines, like spinal issues that come from hunching over a patient their entire life. Neck issues. I have experienced neck issues, and I'm 22. I shouldn't be in severe pain every day at work because they won't provide a loops for me that I can look at the patient and like have, glasses that help me see so I don't have to like bend over and hurt my neck every single day. But, that's, these CNAs are doing the majority of the labor. They're like the CNAs, the HHAs, the DAs, all of these assistant positions are doing a lot of the manual labor, and they're getting disabled by it, and they're not getting paid anything, and they're not able to afford to live, you know? And they see these jobs as, accessories, and they don't see us as important when in reality, we are probably one of the most important positions in healthcare, because without us, it wouldn't run. Doctors don't even know where stuff is kept in the office. I'm the one that knows where stuff is kept in the office. If the doctor had to set up the room, they would take 3 hours to set it up. I can do it in 15 minutes. And yet, people in my position are being paid less because they're people of color, because they're immigrants, because they're not as good at speaking English. And like then American doctors will straight up make fun of these people. Like I've had plenty of doctors talk crap about foreign dentists that work for them to my face because they think that I'm like some ally that like also hates foreigners. Like I don't, and that's very common. That is like scarily common, where these people are getting underpaid for positions while, white Americans are getting paid higher for the same position. It's just it's so insidious, and it's so disgusting, and like the entire healthcare system is built upon this. It's built upon the labor of people that are getting underpaid for their work and that are getting disabled by their positions as well. Because if you're a CNA that is having to move a very heavy patient by yourself, you're going to develop back issues,
Yeah.
but you're getting paid $12 an hour, and then you don't have insurance to pay for those back issues that like appear later on in life, that like, you can deal with them when you're young, but as you get older, it gets harder and harder and harder to deal with these conditions, and yet your insurance doesn't cover it. So you've devoted your life to taking care of other people, and then you've become disabled by it, and you can't even pay for healthcare. And that's what it's meant to do. That's what it's meant to do.
Wow.
Sorry
Wow.
for this. Is like people don't understand that these positions that like are these like auxiliary positions, that's what they're called, are just as important as the doctor, as the nurse. And oftentimes they're the ones that are doing most of the work with the patient, most of the interaction with the patient, and actually keeping the office running. And yet they're the ones that don't have health insurance at all and are getting paid, $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year and can't afford rent. That's why I moved here, because I couldn't afford rent. I couldn't afford rent in Orlando despite working 40, 50, 60 hours a week when I was, taking temp shifts on top of my full-time position.
Wow. Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's wild, man. As far as the healthcare system,
it needs to
uh,
be torn down, and like that's the only thing I can ever say, is that it needs to be torn down and built up from scratch, and from scratch by patients, for patients, by physicians, for patients, and it needs to be universal, and everybody deserves the same access to health, and we need to take into account all of these other determinations of health. There's actually two very good books that I mentioned to you, Health Justice Now and Health Communism, that both cover this very, very well. And they show you the importance of needing that universal healthcare, and that these stopgap measures that the UK has are not enough. So I'm reading the chat. Jacqueline said, "Oh, why don't they teach patients from childcare the importance of dental care and not just treat it as important based on aesthetics or on how white your teeth are?" Because the dental system has like oftentimes for youth, they only spend 25, 30, 45 minutes per patient, and they're trying to get them in and out of the chair because they can want to bill as much as possible. So I've been fired from jobs for taking the time to educate my patients. I, you know, um, they focus on aesthetics because, they can bill more and they can like push these veneers onto people that are actually damaging for your teeth. And they can make it so that people feel bad and feel like it's their fault for what they weren't taught as children. People aren't taught the right way to floss. People aren't taught the right way to brush their teeth. And then they can bill them more as they age because they need more care. Um, they're spending, I've had offices where I was only allowed to spend 15 minutes per child patient. 15 minutes for the entire appointment is 15 minutes. I have to clean the room, clean the patient's teeth, and educate the patient within 15 minutes. That is impossible to do. That is impossible to do. You can't do that. And these kids are getting left behind. They're not taught proper care, and then they're having these dental issues pop up later in life that they then have to pay thousands of dollars to fix. Because like I said, how much money are you willing to pay to get yourself out of pain? I don't know about you, but I'd pay any amount to get out of pain. When I'm in pain, I just want to get out of pain, and I don't care how much I'm paying. you
yeah.
know so it's all created for profit, and once we take out the profit motive, then we can actually have equitable care. The profit motive is what is destroying healthcare in the entire world. you know it's you can't mix profit and health. You can't do that. That's never going to work out, and these insurance companies know that and they're weaponizing it. And they're paying these, like in that video, they're paying these doctors that don't even have any specialization in the procedures that they're denying, and that they're denying them based upon the fact that it's so awful to watch getting patients get denied, and then practitioners blaming patients for the way that they react, and practitioners blaming individuals for their outcomes. I have always said, your teeth tell me more about your socioeconomic status than they do anything else. They don't tell me about how good of a person you are. They don't tell me about how, whether or not you're deserving of care. All they tell me is whether or not you are poor. All they tell me is whether or not you were homeless at any point. That's what they tell me, and when I'm handing out food and doing mutual aid, I'm seeing all these people with horrific health conditions that I can visibly see. And you can make that decision, like it's a split-second decision, and that's why they prioritize aesthetics, because if your teeth are bad, people are going to make that split-second decision and decide that you are a bad person because you have bad teeth. And they did the same thing. Diastemas, which you have, the space in between your front teeth, is something that is commonly seen in the Black community, and there has been a deliberate effort to make it so that that's seen as ugly, you know? And so people are getting braces and veneers to fix that when that's not something that actually is in any way impacting your oral health. That space doesn't do anything. And then they're teaching people that they don't need to floss between those teeth because they have that space, which isn't true, you know? And so Black and brown people are having higher rates of periodontal disease because they're not taught proper hygiene because oftentimes they're poor and they're going to Medicaid offices that don't actually care about teaching patients, you know, and that is like education is important. All of the other determining factors of health are important and need to be pushed, but because we're trying to bill as much as we can to insurance, we're not taking the time to teach our patients. I've worked in concierge offices. I've worked in offices. I've worked in Medicaid. I've worked in concierge offices where the doctor spends 4 hours with a patient and the patient pays like $5,000 for like a single procedure because the doctor is spending so much time. And you know, the difference is mind-boggling. The difference in the way we treat patients based upon how much they can pay. Even within offices that take Medicaid, I've heard of doctors giving different toothbrushes to Medicaid patients than they give to private insurance patients. That's a thing. That's a thing that people do. Like you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to do that, but that is a thing that people do. Like they straight up like Medicaid patients, they see them as like the bottom of the barrel and they don't see them as deserving of health care. And that's why giving everybody universal Medicare isn't ever going to work because these doctors still have those preconceived notions about these patients that they don't deserve health care, that they don't deserve help, you know, because they're not going to get paid for it. I've had doctors use expired materials on Medicaid patients when they use non-expired materials on their private insurance patients. This is so much more common than you think it is. It's just and you know nobody's talking about it, nobody's mentioning it, and there's this cult in dentistry where you know you don't want to talk bad because patients don't trust dentists, and I get why. I understand why patients don't trust doctors, patients don't trust dentists, because they are doing these horrible things and then gaslighting their patients about it. You know, they're blaming the patient for the fact that they have bad teeth, when in reality it's because when they were a kid they didn't have access to a dentist. As an adult, it costs thousands of dollars to fix what was broken already because they never had access and because these dentists in their youth never taught them how to do stuff. You know, and I'm trying to talk to my patients, but I'm just one person. I can't, you know, change everything just by spending more time, and I get penalized for it. I've gotten written up for calming patients down, for spending extra time to calm a patient down. I got written up for that one time by the DSO that I worked for, which is like corporate dentistry. Like it's so corrupt and it's so gross, and they're all working together, and the way that our education system is set up is specifically made so that these dentists are put into debt, these doctors are put into debt, and then all they think about is the profit, all they think about is the money, and that's the only thing that is motivating them. And they do that on purpose. They make it impossible. And that's not even to mention the nepo baby dentist that their grandpa's a dentist, their dad's a dentist, and they're a dentist, and they pass down these offices down to them. So like the people that are getting into dental school from scratch, they don't have that like generational wealth behind them. So they're often having to like catch up with other providers, other dentists in their field. And that happens in medicine too. And that is, you know, they're all working together to make it so that patients can't have care, that way patients get denied care, and only the rich ones are able to actually get decent care. And if we have any sort of private insurance, any sort of anything like that, that's going to keep happening. So having a system like in the UK where it's you know there's that public healthcare system and then there's the private healthcare system, you can only access better healthcare by paying more even when that free system exists. And like that's why Medicare for all won't cut it. The only thing that'll do it is universal single payer healthcare, which the single payer is the government, the state, you know, and the state automatically always covers whatever the doctor deems medically necessary. That's the way we have to do it, and that's the only way that we can actually deal with this issue. And dealing with housing, dealing with water, dealing with all of the food. The food is so important, you know. The fact that we've subsidized these corn companies and are now shoving high fructose corn syrup down people's throats, and we're expecting people to not get diabetes? Like, how are you expecting people not to get diabetes when the sugary, high-calorie food that has no fiber, that has no protein, that has nothing that's actually healthy for you is getting shoved down your throat? Because it's so much cheaper to buy $2 worth of donuts than it is to cook, a fresh meal. And, like, it has to be torn down. That's all I can say, is that it has to be torn down, and everybody's suffering, and it's not just patients, it's providers, it's auxiliary healthcare workers. Everybody is suffering from this system, and yet they've tricked us into thinking that this is better than, having a single, like, have everybody having equal access to healthcare. They've tricked us into that, and it's insidious, and it's gross, and it's disgusting, and we really need to do something about it. Seriously, something needs to be done, and the only thing that can be done is organizing and getting out in your community and showing strength and worker solidarity. That's the only way that we're gonna do it, because reform is not gonna work. These companies, they have all the money, they have all of the resources, and they're not giving it to anybody but the rich, you know? The fact that I know dentists that have used expired materials on Medicaid patients versus non-expired on, private insurance patients, that alone was, like, within 6 months, I became a communist. I was always, like, a sock dem when I was, like, a teenager and stuff, but, like, within 6 months of working in dentistry, I straight up became a communist because, like, and they've tricked providers and health professionals into thinking that it's the failure on the patient's individual, like, it's on the failure on the individual patient, when that's not the case. It is systemic. It is a systemic issue that needs to be dealt with systemically.
And we haven't even gotten to the racial aspect of how a
Oh
lot of
my god. I dentists okay. I have been arguing about this my entire career. Dentists still expose Black patients to more radiation because they think that Black patients have denser bones.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry, but it's
they have what?
denser bones.
They think I'm getting hot.
Yeah.
I'm getting hot.
Sorry, but, like, that's, like,
I'm getting hot.
straight up, you know? Like, and, if you're exposing Black patients to more radiation, then they're gonna have more rates of cancer. Like, it's something that I've been told my entire career, that I have to expose Black patients to more radiation. I never do it because I know that's not true. Like, I've taken enough X-rays in my career that I know for a fact that that's not true, but, like, obviously a 6'2" guy is gonna need more radiation than a 5'2" woman, but, like, that's nothing to do with their race, that's to do with their size?
Yeah.
Like, it's and this is so prevalent. It's so prevalent, I've been told that, like, Black patients are just more likely to have gum disease, which is just not true. It's a bacteria that causes gum disease. The prevalence of the bacteria is what causes it, and the lack of healthcare and the lack of education is what causes the extra growth of bacteria. Yes, Black patients are more likely to have more dental issues, but that's because Black patients are more likely to be poor. They're more likely to be on Medicaid, and they're less likely to have consistent access to care. So they are going to have more issues. That is true, but that's not because of their race. That's because of, like, material conditions that have impacted their access to healthcare. The lack of reparations, the fact that, like, they're only allowed to go to certain dentists. And, like, a lot of dentists no longer even take Medicaid. There is one office in the entirety of Iowa that takes Medicaid insurance for children. You know,
Oh my
like
God.
there's one office. So, it's 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 crazy to me. It's crazy that, like, we're blaming patients for the fact that they can't get in to see a dentist, and that they have bad dental outcomes, and then we're blaming race on top of that without actually, like, analyzing where this comes from. We can't do that. That's awful. That's disgusting to me. Like, the fact that I've been told that I need to expose Black patients to more radiation, like, I looked it up after, actually, like, getting told it the first time, and I was like, "That's not even true." And then if I try to argue, you know, they're told, "Oh, the dentist is the one that knows everything." And I'm like, "Okay, but the dentist is, like, straight up spreading racist propaganda that has been debunked so many times by so many studies," you know? And the fact that Black and brown people are less likely to have private insurance and less likely to have consistent access to care doesn't mean that their race makes them more prone to these things. That's not how healthcare works, you know? Like, sure, genetically there are certain conditions, but like that's that in health in dentistry we know that it's caused by the bacteria Streptococcus mutans, and it's not like Black people have more bacteria in their mouth. That's not how that works, you know.
Okay, this, gosh, we could talk about this all day. Look,
Yeah, we can, and like the thing
oh
is,
my gosh.
they trick Black dentists into it too. They trick
Yeah,
Black dentists into it. I've been told that by a Black dentist. A Black
wow.
dentist told me that I need to expose Black patients to more radiation. I argued with him. I argued with him, and I didn't do that, and my X-rays always turned out fine. My X-rays were always great, you know. Um, and it's like they spread this propaganda into our providers, and then our providers perpetuate it, and people like it's it's crazy, and like I've been yelling and screaming about this for years, and nobody listens to me because I'm just a DA, because I'm like, they can replace me very easily by getting some 18-year-old girl that went to 3 months of dental school that she paid $25,000 for, and she didn't actually get trained in anything, so she's having difficulty finding a job, and then they underpay her by paying her very little. And, because I'm actually experienced and I can speak out against this, they'll fire me, or, they'll write me up, and like it's it is so rampant. The racism in dentistry, in healthcare in general too. How they won't give patients painkillers if they're Black. They're less likely to give them stronger opiates. Like that is straight up like something that happens. Oh my God, there's studies where they used to say that like Black patients were less likely like have like a higher pain tolerance. That's just not true. That's not how nerves work.
No,
The color of your skin has nothing to do with the amount of pain that you're in, you
no.
know?
And I've actually did a story about how being a patient that was on dialysis, how they actually used to measure I think it's the GFR for
Yeah, they measure it
dial-
differently.
yeah, they measured it
And then
differently. They
that way
actually
Black
changed it
patients are less
recently.
likely to get kidney transplants. You're exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah, they changed it so that it's now race neutral, but it used to be for years
I
that
think they
they
only changed
would
it like less than 5 years ago.
yeah, it had to be it was within the last 5 years that they actually made it race neutral, but they made it so that if you had a certain creatinine level that was higher, if you were Black, they would say, "Oh, you're close, but you don't really need dialysis." But if you're white and you had that same levels, then they would say you would need dialysis, which means that Black people were more likely to go into kidney failure
Mhm.
and have more severity because they were being underdiagnosed. And it's the same thing with pulmonary issues as well. Even in the testing for different medical devices like the pulse oximeter, right? It's being tested on white patients, but it's not being tested
Yeah,
on Black
like
patients. So the
and like
effectiveness of it isn't
isn't
as
as
good
effective
as it should
because it relies on light. It relies on the ability for the light to break through your skin, and if you have white skin, the light doesn't have as much of a barrier.
be.
Melanin, it reflects light. So like, and the commenter Michael Pan, he said that healthcare racism is a result of slavery, and that's exactly true. The myths that were perpetuated by slave owners about like Black people being stronger, or like having denser bones, or having a higher pain tolerance, all of that is a direct result of slavery, and we've never dealt with that. Like
Yeah,
straight up until less than 5 years ago, like you were saying, Black patients were less likely to get dialysis, which is like your kidneys have nothing to do with the color of your skin. Your nerves, your pain tolerance has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Like, I'm sorry, if I were to stab you and stab me, we would feel the same pain. You know? Like it's and we should get the same level of healthcare, but that's not the case. And these biases, and doctors aren't like expected to like unlearn this stuff that they learn in school, which is why they're continuing to perpetuate it, and why they're continuing to tell people like me that I have to expose my Black patients to more radiation. you know that is like that's just how it's just that's how it's created, and it is specifically created to get these people from the ability, like, get these people to not have the ability to get healthcare, and, like, they see it's a surplus population that they don't care about, you know? Disabled people and people of color are more likely to be homeless, you know? That's just a fact, you know, and we see that if we're doing mutual aid, we see that, you know, like, and it is disgusting and it is sickening the way that these doctors talk about their patients of color. It is so sickening the way they talk about it. Like, I just, and like I said, I've had black doctors who continue to perpetuate these myths without even like thinking about it. Like, they've been indoctrinated to be like traitors to their class and traitors to their race and like perpetuate these myths. And it's
Yeah.
so gross. Like, I've straight up had doctors tell me that they don't even want to go. They don't. Oh my god, I've had doctors tell me that, like, they don't want to go to Paris anymore because, like, there's too many Muslims and black people there, or that, like, and there are all these, like, rich, petty bourgeois people that, like, have no material understanding, and they're so divorced from the material reality that we live in, that most people live in, that, like, they just continue to say these, like, stupid bullshit things, and I've had doctors that blame disabled patients for difficulty with care, with, like, oral care, and it's hard. If you have joint pain in your hands and your fingers, you're gonna have difficulty brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have more healthcare costs. And yet doctors will blame the patient, saying they're not trying hard enough, which what do you mean you're not trying hard enough? Nobody's skipping brushing their teeth on purpose once they know the reasoning. I'll be honest here. I have mental health issues, and I've had trouble brushing my teeth in the past. I'm missing 4 of my teeth. I have multiple cavities, multiple fillings, multiple crowns. Um, and I work in dentistry, and I know the importance, and to this day, sometimes I miss brushing. And yet, if I were a patient that didn't have dental experience, the doctor would blame me for it. They would say that I was just lazy, that I wasn't trying hard enough, when in reality, sometimes I'm just depressed, and I have trouble brushing my teeth because I'm too depressed to get out of bed, or I'm too sad to do stuff. It is, and the blame on the individual is ruinous towards healthcare outcomes. If we blame individuals for what are systemic issues, you're never going to get to the bottom of it. You're never going to actually understand or realize what is really going on. Like, the fact that I keep getting told that black patients just so happen to have more periodontal disease, when that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, but, like, that's not the case. Black patients are just more likely to be poor and more likely to have poor health outcomes because they don't have access to healthcare.
Yeah.
It's a very obvious connection to me, and yet these people, like, I'm reading old textbooks and it says stuff like this. Like, the textbooks say this stuff. Like, I read old textbooks for fun because I love dentistry and I love teeth and I love learning about this stuff, and it's perpetuating these racist lies. And nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's actually fixing it. And the only way that you can fix it is by having universal healthcare, by not having by not having these systems where they are specifically made to deny care for people. It's just it's the propaganda is crazy when what's told to providers, like, and then they push it upon to their staff too. Like, it just ugh, it's so upsetting. Like, I've been fighting for it for the last 3 years, and nobody listens to me, and, I'm essentially, like, called crazy sometimes for this, for, like, actually fighting for equity for my patients, for I used to switch out when I worked for the doctor that would use expired materials on medicated patients. I would switch it out without him seeing, I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that is the expired bottle." Um, yeah, yeah, because, like, I've read studies where, like, using expired bond means that the filling's more likely to fall out, and if you're using crappier materials, they're gonna have horrible outcomes, and it's a self-perpetuating issue, you know? Um, do I have contact? I do. I mean, I have a Twitter. I also have an Instagram, and then you can also contact me through the email from People's Revolutionary League. Um, that's
So
all at the top
yeah, that
of
was
our
actually
website.
that was one of the final questions that I was going to ask you. Was where can they find you and what do you have coming up
Well, I have
next?
a Twitter. It's kind of a silly name. It's Feefle Knight, Knight. That's my Twitter. Um, I don't think you actually follow me back, Jay.
I I would have to get
I know
I
you
would
have
have to
so many
spell it
followers.
again.
I have nothing against that, but I just find it really funny. But yeah, no, I talk about this stuff a lot, and I'm fighting for it within the healthcare system, but I think we all have to come together and like demand reparations, demand care, and demand a complete overhaul of how we're teaching our providers. We can't be perpetuating these racist lies into our providers because that is it's not it's not true, it's not helpful, it's not effective, and all it does is hurt people. It hurts people, it kills people. And as a healthcare provider, if you're working in healthcare, you should not be perpetuating things that kill people. That like you should care about your patients. And oftentimes these people are just in it for the money, you know. Um do I support cash payment reparations? I mean, yeah, I I think reparations should be done. I don't have like specifics like numbers or anything, but yeah, I do support that. Um like I think a redistribution of wealth in general is the most important thing. So I think that would be part of the redistribution of wealth. Um,
Yeah, that's a conversation that we have many times.
yeah,
Here, it's really reparations, especially cash reparations, is really just a class issue. Basically, the surplus labor was stolen from people like my ancestors here in the United States, and so they would never be paid back. And so, because they're
yes,
passed away, that money would go to the next of kin, being like myself and other people who are also,
Bill.
freedmen, basically people who are Black Americans that are descendants of the chattel slavery. So
Yeah.
that's basically what he's asking about. But
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't understand what the question was, but yeah, no, 100%. I mean, labor was stolen from people, and they should be paid for their labor. That's like a basic Marxian
yeah,
economics idea that people should be paid for the labor that they do.
yeah,
And their labor was stolen through slavery, and so thus they should absolutely like be paid
yeah.
for it, like the next of kin, because that would have been, you know.
Okay. Roger said, "Don't let her go. I just got stuff in the DM for." All right, Roger. All right. So, with that being said, guys, please make sure to go ahead and give a like to the stream. We're gonna get into the comments really quick because I know Lex has been very, very generous with their time, so I want to make sure that I give them a good send off. But let me go to the let me see the DM for Roger. Roger was like, "Hey, don't go yet." I was like, "Okay, all right, fine, Roger." Um, okay, so let me read this, and then we'll go through a couple of comments in the chats, and then we'll let you go. All right, so Roger says it is easier to tear down than it is to build something new. To put more emphasis on tearing current system down than the type of economic and governmental system you would like us to transition us, than to lead to than to leads to chaos. If you don't have a new system built parallel already in place and ready to go that you can easily transition to once tearing down the old system, then what you create is a vacuum of power for the next fascist to fill in. Then what ensues is chaos until a new leader is chosen just for the process to start all over again. The Cusco Bridge, which can Kosciuszko, I almost call it Cusco. The Kosciuszko Bridge. I'm sorry, I think about Emperor's New Groove. Says the Kosciuszko Bridge, which connects Brooklyn to Queens on the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, was built in the process of tearing down the old one. If they would have torn down the old one before they started to build the new one, then it would have thrown everything into chaos. That is why I asked your guest what type of economic and governmental system detail would you like to build up? You already know mine.
Well,
Um,
centralized economic planning. Um, and I mean, we have like, in my opinion, when it comes to healthcare, we have the infrastructure in place already. It's just not being equitably distributed. The doctors exist, the all of the infrastructure's there. We have it. It's just not being used correctly. People are being denied from going to certain dentists that are close to them and having to drive 3 to 4 hours away. When if the centralized economic system starts paying for universal health care, like the dentists are there, the doctors are there, and I think that it's just not being used correctly, in my personal opinion. But I do agree that like there needs to be an alternative in place, but I don't think that alternative can exist while insurance does exist, because if doctors are being like held down to the insurance system, then I don't think that like they're ever going to do any other type of work. It keeps them trapped in that cycle of debt. We have to forgive the debt of all student loan debt. We have to redistribute wealth, and it's I think that like a centralized economic planning system, like I'm a big fan of the way the USSR did it. Like I said, my mom's healthcare in there was completely free. My grandma never had to pay for a single dime to fix her back. My dedushka, his healthcare up until 1991 was free. And then private equity comes in and like divvies all of this up. But it's not that the infrastructure isn't there; it's just that it's not being used correctly.
Yeah, I think this comes with also what we talk about building dual power, right? Because
Hmm.
building dual power means that while the power system that we have still exists, we're building another one to replace it, so that it simultaneously operates at the same time, and then the old power structure can be dismantled,
Yeah.
right? It's not taking away and leaving people with nothing. It's building the building first before you dismantle and tear down the old building.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go on to
Roger, if you want, you can DM me on Twitter as well. FEEFLE Knight, KNIGHT. And we can
if
talk about this because I do want to know what your
if you
thoughts and
could
opinions are.
type that also in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
chat.
Let me send it.
Let me see. This is the General Health Assembly, the Illinois Universal Health Care Act. So there's a Universal Health Care Act in Illinois that he shared. Um, you said you're in Iowa, though.
I'm
Uh,
right on the border. I'm in the border of Iowa and Illinois, so
okay.
yes.
So this is the Illinois Health Care Act. This is HB 3780. It says creates the Illinois Universal Healthcare Act, provides that all individuals residing in the state are covered under Illinois Health Services Program for health insurance. Sets forth health coverage benefits that participants are entitled to under the program. Sets forth the qualification requirements for participating health providers. Sets forth standards for provider reimbursement. Provides that it is unlawful for private health insurance to sell health insurance coverage that duplicates the coverage of the program. Provides that ownership of health delivery facilities is unlawful. Provides that the state shall establish the Illinois Health Services Trust to provide financing for the program. Sets forth requirements for claims billing under the program. Provides that the program shall include funding for long-term care services and mental health services. Provides that the program shall establish a single prescription drug formality and list of approved durable medical goods and supplies. Creates the Pharmaceutical and Durable Medical Goods Committee to negotiate the prices of pharmaceuticals and durable medical goods with suppliers or manufacturers on an open bid competitive basis. Sets forth provisions concerning patients' rights. Provides that the employees of the program shall be compensated in accordance with the current pay scale for state employees as deemed professionally appropriate by the General Assembly. So thank you very much for that,
Yeah, I'm
Roger.
gonna look into that.
Yeah, I'll give you. I'll send you the link.
I
Actually, let me
appreciate
put
it.
the link in the chat right now for you so that you can have that. I'll put it in the private chat as well. And then I'll put this in the public chat so that everybody can see and go there. If you're in Illinois, go ahead and give that a gander as well. Did I say give
Definitely.
that a gander? Oh god, I'm old. All right, and let me me see here. And then I'll continue on with, oh, all right, I followed you back. I want to make sure I did that. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Now, let's see. Oh, okay. So Roger says, tell Lex to take this and run it as an initiative. Illinois allows for put of staters to petition for signatures. Okay. All right. So he's big on direct ballot initiatives as well.
Yeah,
So
I just moved here, so I'm still figuring out the political landscape. So that is really good guidance. And
yeah,
I'm positive I can easily get signatures.
yeah. Okay. So this as
You know, the learning
well.
system is so
So this talks further about it. Key aspects says the bill mandates that all individuals residing in Illinois would be covered under the Illinois Health Services Program. The program will cover all medically necessary services, including primary care, specialty care, non-elective cosmetic, inpatient and outpatient care, emergency care, prescription drugs, durable medical equipment, long-term care, mental health services. I'm sorry. The full scope of dental services, non-elective cosmetic, substance abuse treatment, chiropractic services, and basic vision care. No cost sharing, with the exception of services exceeding basic covered benefits as defined by the Illinois Health Services Governing Board. The program would eliminate deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, and other cost sharing for covered benefits. It says provider qualification and reimbursement. The bill outlines specific qualifications for participating providers, uh, emphasizing adherence to quality and licensing guidelines. It also details reimbursement structure for healthcare providers, allowing physicians to choose between fee-for-free service, salary positions, or capitation payments. Hospitals and other providing institutions will receive global budgets to cover operating expenses. Prohibition on duplicate covered investor ownership says would make it unlawful for health insurers to sell coverage that duplicates the program's benefits. It would also make investor ownership of healthcare delivery facilities illegal, requiring existing investor-owned facilities to transition to nonprofit status. It says the bill proposing establishing the Illinois Health Services as the sole finance reserve. Funding sources should include government appropriations, a progressive set of graduate income contributions, 20% from individuals, 20% from businesses, and 60% from the government. Federal healthcare funds like Medicaid grants, contributions, and other design tax revenues or funds from litigation settlements. It says administrative and regulatory provisions. It says the law includes provisions for administering the program through the Illinois Health Services Governing Board, establishing a single prescription drug formality and approved list of durable medical goods, creating committee to negotiate prices with manufacturers, ensuring patient rights, and implementing nationwide uniform electronic medical form systems.
Well, that would be so helpful. Nationwide EHR systems.
Yeah. So basically, what it aims to create a state level universal healthcare system, providing comprehensive benefits without significant cost sharing and transitioning to the healthcare delivery system to a nonprofit model. All right. So thank you
Thank you
very
for
much.
sharing that. I appreciate it.
He says, actually, medical debt ranks the lowest. He said, hey, libertarians and conservatives, with Americans holding $21 trillion in mortgage debt, $1.7 trillion in student loan debt, $1.6 trillion in auto loan debt, $1.3 trillion in small business loan debt, $1.1 trillion in total credit card debt, and $220 billion in medical debt held by Americans. Yet you expect Americans to worry about the national debt, which has nothing to do with us? Good luck with that one. All right. He says you guys mentioned getting bad crap like corn, byproducts, and other crap out of food and doing a healthy lifestyle. That's exactly what RFK been trying to do. But because we cringe on his stance on Israel, which is not part of his job, and yet he has no power over his take on the jab, we throw the baby out with the bathwater and end up ignoring the fact that he is making pharmaceutical and drug industries buckle. They told him to create some type of uniformity so that they wouldn't have to worry about the states passing their own legislation, making it harder for them to take advantage of customers. So he told the governors, hey, send me waivers out so that you can regulate these guys by yourself to disrupt their operation. I say within those waivers, put single payer healthcare, which he isn't against, at least at the national level. Not sure if he's against that at the state level, but since he is so much into getting bad crap out of food, then put within the request for waiver single payer healthcare.
RFK is also like anti-fluoride, and you know, so I honestly like don't like the guy because he's been perpetuating that myth. Personally, that just like it's something that we fight against a lot, and also like the whole anti-jab thing, as well as like as an autistic person, his like autism registry is really scary because like that's can be easily abused. So I don't know if supporting RFK and like his stuff is really the best way of going about doing that. And also like he puts like methylene blue, which like straight up dyes your organs blue, like and is like what we use to like dye slides in like biology. So like I don't know. I don't know if that guy is really like the greatest person to be propping up, because a lot of like any good that he's doing, I think, is like really I don't know, it's like the counterweight of like making an autism registry and like being anti-fluoride, which is like one of the most basic things that we can do to increase dental health, like amongst the entire population, is putting fluoride in the water. Removing fluoride has had catastrophic effects on populations. So like I don't think I could ever support the guy, even if he's taking stuff out of like food and subsidizing stuff. It's just I really, as like an autistic person, I could not say that I could support him even if he's doing like one or two good things. I think the amount of negative things is like um you know fluoride's not debatable. Fluoride and hydroxyapatite are the exact same thing with one change. The fluorine atom makes it harder for the fluoride to break away from the tooth. It helps remineralize. So I do like fluoride does increase the dental health outcomes, like increase the quality of dental health outcomes. Hydroxyapatite and fluorine, um, it is important, and when it's used in moderation on the teeth, it is not cause like any sort of calcification of the pineal gland or anything. It is a positive thing overall. Obviously you can overdose on anything, so like if you're taking tons of it, it's not good for you, but the limited amount that's in our toothpaste and that's in our fluoride treatments is not bad.
All right, let's continue on to the next one. Let me see. This one is
It's kind of
uh-oh. Let's see. It says a state fitness program that would serve to keep residents and people who work here from all around the state in shape by cutting costs on the back end, with state government putting up money on the front end. The way it'll work is residents would be issued state government fitness ID card with a number on it that can be used as payment when wishing to take up classes that keep the body and mind in shape. So whether you wish to take up ground classes, private lessons wouldn't be covered except for personal trainers. That falls under the category. It would be
a silly name. It's FEEF.
Dance, let me see, martial arts, boxing, meditative, stretching, movements such as yoga, qigong, or qigong. Let me see. See if it scrolls. Let me see. Qigong, sitting meditation, acupuncture, acupressure, hire a personal trainer, take out a gym membership, as well as using it to take up a nutrition assistant program. What would happen is you'd present your government issued ID card to the instructor, tell them you would like to take a class, and they go to the government website, fill out the necessary information so that they can get payment for it. Then they teach you. Benefit justification: one, it eliminates the cost barrier for those living on margins that prevents them from getting into shape and seeking better health, often associated with why low-income populations who have worse health conditions. Two, it goes hand in glove with the state health program by saving the system money for future healthcare costs that would be prevented by the government investing in good health on the front end. Three, it acts as a boom to the economy because you are one of those instructors or nutritional gurus. You're going to get a lot more business with people knocking down your door to take those classes, where you're going to have to end up hiring some of your top students to teach these classes, opening more facilities for each of them to become instructors at. I'd imagine there have to be some type of regulations put in place for instructors that each of these professions to get in compliance with in order for them to receive payments from government. Not saying they can't teach without being regulated. It's just that the government won't issue the payments. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Oh,
The baking soda thing, baking soda and water only has a relative dent and abrasion of 4, so it's not that abrasive. Charcoal's more abrasive, so charcoal toothpaste is bad. If you look up the relative dent and abrasion scale, the RDA scale, then you can check which kind of toothpaste you should be using.
okay. He says, I always advise those who are looking to run ballot measure, make it easy for you as possible. Sometimes you don't have to write an entire new legislation. Sometimes it's already written for you by the legislator who can't get it out of committee. Just take that and run it. I couldn't keep up with her spelling, so the young person of mine, I ask you that you follow me, introduce yourself, and I will follow you back. Okay.
Okay.
And then whoop, it says, I know RFK is triggering. RFK, I want you to focus on the fact that he wants to take back crap like corn syrup and other crap that they don't allow in other countries out of food. That's what I wanted you to focus on to make part of the ballot measure. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So thank you very much for that. And
Teeth are not bones. Teeth are not bones, by the way, Cobra Commander. Teeth are odonta. They're a separate organ.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
Okay. And then, so due to the sake of time,
Sorry, I talk a lot.
no, it's okay, it's okay. I just I have my final segment I have to get to. We're approaching 3 hours now. But one of the things that I do want to do is I want to highlight your website again so that people know where to go to support the work that you're doing on the ground as well. Here you have it with the Quad Cities People's Kitchen here. And it's for peoplesrevolutionaryleague.org that you have. And if you guys are in the Quad Cities area, you guys like to get in contact to be able to do mutual aid, then here is the link that I put in the chat. So you guys have that.
And we have, like, our Instagram and Facebook's kind of empty right now just because we've been doing a lot of stuff on the ground, not taking a lot of pictures because it's just a few of us right now. But we're hoping to get that ramped up a little bit more as we get more done.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. All right.
Sorry,
So
I meant that teeth are ectodermal organs. It's been 3 hours of talking. My brain's a little tired. Odontoblasts do make bones, you're correct.
Of course. So, look, Lex, it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so very much for joining. Look, please don't be a stranger. I would like to have you on to talk about other news stories as well, because these things come up quite often. And so I would like to get your opinion and your perspective on a lot of things that are happening worldwide, whether it be what's going on outside the United States or what's going on within the United States as well.
But yeah, no, definitely just like message me. You have all my contact stuff.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so very much for coming in. It was an honor to have you. Thank you.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to speak.
Definitely. Definitely. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. So that was Lex Knight joining. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. So basically, those the both segments that we had covered. One about them being attacked by Democrat protesters in Iowa. So we had to talk about that, and then we also talked about this healthcare issue, this disgusting healthcare system that really should be completely done away with, and we should replace it with something that is actually for the people, not for the rich and powerful. So thank you very much for that. Everybody, go ahead and give a like as well. Thank you so very much. We're going to be going into our final segment. This one, a lot of people are mad. A lot of people are angry, and justifiably so. I'm mad. I'm pissed off. So we're going to get into this. So let's go back into the thumbnails. Okay, so of course we talked to Lex Knight about being assaulted by Democrats. Then we talked about physicians being frustrated, and rightly so, because the United States private healthcare system is crap. So we talked about that. But now we're going to be talking about a light sentence for somebody involved in the death and murder of Breonna Taylor out of Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to be getting into that story right now. Breonna deserved better. So I want to get into this. Back in 2020, when we had the uprisings that were fighting against police brutality, two stories were burned, imprinted into our brains collectively as a nation and really throughout the world. One was the over 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes of a police officer murdering George Floyd before our very eyes. But another story that broke a lot of our hearts, especially in the Black community, was the murder of Breonna Taylor. And I use my words very carefully because I don't say death, I say murder, because that's exactly what it is. It was a murder. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, it was still a murder. And so we have been demanding justice for Breonna Taylor for the last 5 years and have yet to really see any justice. But unfortunately, as it goes within the system like this, we're giving crumbs. We're giving peanuts in regards to justice, in regards to fairness. And this is what's been happening to the people in this country, particularly the Black community in this country, ever since its inception. So we're going to get into this story right now. This is a story that's coming out of the Associated Press. We're going to be talking about this because there was a sentencing of one of the police officers involved in the overnight no-knock raid that resulted in the murder of Breonna Taylor. Let's get into this. It says judge gives ex-officer nearly 3 years in Breonna Taylor raid, rebuffs DOJ call for no prison time. So, of course, it's Ben Crump being one of the representatives. It says a federal judge on Monday sentenced a former Kentucky police officer to nearly 3 years in prison for using excessive force during the deadly 2020 Breonna Taylor raid, rebuffing a U.S. Department of Justice recommendation of no prison time for the defendant. Brett Hankison, who fired 10 shots during the raid but didn't hit anyone, was the only officer on the scene charged in the black woman's death. He is the first person sentenced to prison in the case that rocked the city of Louisville and spawned weeks of street protests over police brutality that year. The U.S. District Judge, Rebecca Grady Jennings, in sentencing Hankison, said no prison time is not appropriate and would minimize the jury's verdict from November. Jennings said she was startled there weren't more people injured in the raid from Hankison's blind shots. She sentenced Hankison, 49 years old, to 33 months in prison for the conviction of a use of excessive force, with 3 years of supervised probation to follow the prison term. He will not report directly to prison. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons will determine where and when he starts his sentence. So first of all, I want to stop here really quick for a second. First of all, the person who actually shot the bullets that hit Breonna Taylor should be in cuffs, should be in trial, should be convicted for murder. You see, let me remind people about what happened. There was a no-knock raid that they were trying to go and arrest somebody for drug paraphernalia distribution. And they went to the wrong house. A no-knock raid, meaning they broke into somebody's house in the middle of the night. Now, let me paint a picture for you. You're at your house. You're sleeping soundly with your honey. And you have a legal firearm in your name. And then guess what happens? You hear a noise. You hear people inside the house. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, wait a minute. I think we got somebody trying to rob us. Or worse. So what do? Your heart's racing, your heart's pumping, so you get up. Somebody's in your crib, so you shoot first, ask questions later. There was no announcement that police was in there, or at least you couldn't at least hear it because you were dead asleep. And so you pick up your piece and you let off a few rounds. Because you don't know who the hell is inside your house. And then they fire back. And as they're firing back, they hit your significant other. And your significant other dies. And then you find out that it's the cops that are in your house that broke into your house. And now you get arrested for trying to protect your family. Because you thought that it was somebody trying to break in. And somebody did break in. But the people who broke in were cops. And now the person that fired the shot that killed your loved one is still walking about among us. But then the other one that fired 10 shots that could have hurt other people as well as yourself only got sentenced to less than 3 years, how would you feel? How would you feel? Breonna deserved better than this. Let's continue on. It says the judge who presided over two of Hankison's trials expressed disappointment with the sentencing recommendation by federal prosecutors last week, saying that the Justice Department was treating Hankison's actions as an inconsequential crime and said some of its arguments were incongruous and inappropriate. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who helped Taylor's family secure a $12 million wrongful death settlement against the city of Louisville, had called the department's recommendation an insult to the life of Breonna Taylor and a blatant betrayal of the jury's decision. Crump was at Monday's hearing and said he had hoped for a longer sentence, but was grateful that Hankison is at least going to prison and has to think for those 3 years about Breonna Taylor and that her life mattered. Afterward, before the crowd outside the courthouse, Crump sounded familiar chants, "Say her name." The crowd yelled, "Breonna Taylor." And he and other members of Taylor's family legal team issued a subsequent statement criticizing the Justice Department. Let's continue to hear. It says Hankison's 10 shots the night of the March 2020 botched drug raid flew through the walls of Taylor's apartment into a neighboring apartment, narrowly missing the neighboring family. The 26-year-old's death, along with the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, sparked a racial injustice and police brutality protest nationwide that year. But the Justice Department, under the new leadership since President Donald Trump took office in January, sought no prison time for Hankison in an abrupt about-face by federal prosecutors after the department spent years prosecuting the former detective. I'm going to say this to the Black community, those of you who voted for Donald Trump. That man does not give a shit about any of us. Why in the hell are you still on his team? And let me remind you, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a liberal. I say the same shit about Joe Biden. I would say the same thing about Kamala Harris, because they don't care about Black people either. Why are we still allowing these people to give us the okie doke when in the reality they're showing us who they really are? The Trump Justice Department didn't want Hankison to face prison time. No, neither of these parties give a damn about us. This is why I say leave both parties. Because they're not there for us and they will never be there for us. Let's continue. But the Justice Department, under new leadership since President Donald Trump took office, sought no prison time. It says they suggested time already served, which amounted to 1 day and 3 years of supervised probation. Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, said she was disappointed that the new federal prosecutors assigned to the case were not pushing for a tougher sentence. On many occasions inside the courtroom Monday, lead federal prosecutor Rob Keegan agreed with Hankison's defense attorneys on factors that would decrease Hankison's punishment. There's no prosecution in there for us. That's what Breonna Taylor's mother said. Brett has his own defense team. I didn't know he got a second one. Taylor was shot in her hallway by 2 officers after her boyfriend fired from inside the apartment, striking an officer in the leg. Neither of the officers was charged in state or federal court after prosecutors deemed they were justified in returning fire to the apartment. Here's the thing. How are they justified when they did a no-knock raid and entered into somebody's home, startling them awake, and that person was just doing self-defense of their family. How in the hell are they justified? But that's how the state operates. Because you don't have rights. On paper, citizens of the United States have Second Amendment rights. On paper. But in reality, do we really have Second Amendment rights? Do Black Americans really have Second Amendment rights? That's the question. Because when we do use our Second Amendment rights, when we do exercise our Second Amendment rights, then we're in the wrong. Look, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, they were asleep. Y'all shouldn't have be doing no-knock raids on people. And this is why I talk about how the war on drugs actually shouldn't be existing anymore. Because it's the war on drugs that gave the catalyst for police officers to do a no-knock raid on somebody's house. That's what it is. They're not, and plus, even when it comes to drug paraphernalia, they're not going after the people on the top. They're only going after the low-level guys. Because they wouldn't dare go after the people on top. Because the people on the top, well, they keep the machine going too. So, of course, they went after somebody who they thought was distributing drugs. When in reality, that wasn't the case at all. Says Louisville police used a drug warrant to enter Taylor's apartment, but found no drugs or cash inside. A separate jury deadlocked on federal charges against Hankison in 2023, and he was acquitted on state charges of wanton endangerment in 2022. In their recent sentencing memo, federal prosecutors wrote that though Hankison's response in the fraught circumstances was unreasonable, given the benefit of hindsight, that unreasonable response did not kill or wound Breonna Taylor, her boyfriend, her neighbors, defendant, fellow officers, or anyone else. Jennings acknowledged Monday that officers were provoked by Taylor's boyfriend's gunshot, but said that does not allow officers to then do what they want and then be excused. They should have never did the no-knock raid in the first place. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, if the no-knock raid never happened, Breonna Taylor would still be alive. We wouldn't even know her name. We wouldn't even know her name. She would still be alive. God damn it. So this is what happened. One of the things, and please make sure to take the poll. But I want to get into this as well because people are rightfully pissed that he wasn't sentenced for longer, as well as the people who are who actually shot the bullets that murdered Breonna Taylor should also be in that courtroom too, but they're not. So let's get into this.
Breaking story, as we just told you going into that break, former LMPD Detective Brent Hankison getting 2 years and 9 months from federal judge Rebecca Grady Jennings. Our Isaiah Kim Martinez covered his trial in November and was in the courtroom all day long. Isaiah, tell us more about how all that came out, how people reacted, because the judge sort of surprising everybody with her overruling of the DOJ recommendation.
Well, Doug, it was stunning. 2 years, 9 months, like you said, 33 months in custody for Brett Hankison, and then 3 years supervised release. Immediately after, I just heard a very prominent activist here, Alyssa Newton, our senior photojournalist, can zoom into him. He just said, and excuse some of the profanity, people are very impassioned right now, but Bruce Sweeney in the purple jersey just said on the megaphone, he says, 2 years, 9 months, that's crazy. And you get this feeling, at least for the activists and protesters, former protesters here right now, that they are not happy with that sentence. I actually was inside the courtroom. I saw Tamika Palmer, of course, Breonna Taylor's mother, essentially sort of put her face in her hands. She didn't look distraught, but she definitely looked disappointed as the judge not only said her sentence, but said the guidelines that led up to her decision. It was sort of dwindling that number as the minutes went by. Again, 2 years, 9 months. That'll be the sentence for Brett Hankison to serve in.
2 years, 9 months. 2 years and 9 months. It's not even a full 3 years. That's all he's getting. And then he gets supervised probation afterwards. Supervised by who? What, one of his buddies? That's a joke. It's a joke.
Federal prison, and then through 3 years supervised release shortly after. And you can hear the individual here, Antonio, with the megaphone, saying 33 months, basically saying it's not justice. Mentioned the fact that we're in Louisville and what they've been through over the last 5 years. I want to step back in here. You know, this is a moment, right? We saw the Department of Justice, in sort of a stunning move under the Trump administration, recommend 3 years supervised release. That's it last week. So many were wondering, is that all Brett Hankison is going to? That was the words for some of the family members that were questioning that. But the judge ended up going significantly higher than this new Department of Justice had recommended, which again, I was told by Brian Butler, who's a former federal prosecutor, that is very rare, but it happens. And she said she took, the judge here, Rebecca Grady Jennings, says she took everything into consideration, including the severity of this verdict, the severity of this charge that Brett Hankison was found guilty of.
Isaiah.
They are still in the courtroom right now going through appeal proceedings right now, Doug.
Well, let's talk about what you were watching inside that courtroom today. First of all, the family was giving a victim impact statement, I know, to the judge today. What about Brett Hankison? Did he speak at all today?
Brett Hankison did, Doug. He apologized directly to the family, and he actually said, if I were to know everything that I do now, going back in time 5 years, that he wouldn't have fired those shots. He said that.
Oh, so now it's like, well, if I had known. How much training do police officers get officially? You get more training going to cosmetology school than you do a police officer in the United States. I talked to a former police trainer. She told me that they actually get more training in cosmetology school than they do in being a police officer. None of those people are professionally trained. None of them. None of them. Therefore, why in the hell do they have a badge and a gun? Why in the world? Why is it that they get so little training and then licensed to be able to take a life? But to help preserve life, you have to go through years and years and years of medical training in order to be able and being able to be licensed in order to preserve a life. But they don't need as much training to take a life. That's wild, isn't it?
He said the words were very clear to hear in the courtroom, and he told that directly to the family, that he would not have fired his weapon had he known everything that he knew years ago. Of course, this was before the judge made her ruling on that sentence. Again, 33 months in federal custody, Doug.
Let's go over what was potential here. According to the memorandum they filed just last week, he could have been convicted anywhere between 135 months to 168 months in life in prison, up to life in prison. And then the Trump administration DOJ attorney said, we want no jail time for him, just to serve the 1 day he's already served, and then the 3 years of supervised release. That did not happen. So this judge was appointed by President Donald Trump during his first term. She went against the DOJ's recommendations.
Doug, she did, and she actually said right before her sentence that she's very troubled by some of the reasoning that this new look Department of Justice, these attorneys who, by the way, I have never seen before, they did not step in that courtroom for a single day of either of these trials, essentially strangers to anybody covering this case. She said she was troubled by some of the reasoning. She says in her words that they were diminishing the verdict of what she called a very serious charge that he was convicted of, Doug. So you could tell she was not having any of that recommendation. But again, as far as the raw sentence, significantly lower than many people might have expected with the family. But she did make it clear she was going based off a 33-month to 41-month guideline. That was what she was operating in. So if you consider that, it was closer to what she expected going into today, Doug.
So it just goes to show the Trump administration doesn't care. They want to let killer police off the hook. And I want to end with this as well, because I find this laughable at this juncture. Since federal prosecutors had argued that multiple factors, including that Hankison's 2 other trials ended with no convictions, should greatly reduce the potential punishment. They also argued that he would be susceptible to abuse in prison and suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Will cry me a motherfucking river. Yeah, because you killed an innocent black woman. You murdered during unknown operation. Look, the dudes in the pen know all about that story. Let me tell you about dudes in the pen. Because I've had family that served in the penitentiary. I'm gonna tell you something. Especially men in the penitentiary. When they go in, they may not know much about legal lingo and jargon and processes and stuff like that. But guess what? Give them a little bit of time. Next thing you know, they are better than some of the lawyers, baby. They are educated on these laws. They're educated on these cases. And as soon as they found out, and guess what? They've had 5 years. 5 years to learn about the case about Breonna Taylor. They have 5 years to learn. Guess what? That's a lot of time. And so they know all the facts. And the streets talk. And when the streets talk, guess what? The dudes in the pen, they hear what the streets are saying. And they know all the facts on the ground that's going on. And so then, since they know all the facts, if one of the cops that participated in the murder of Breonna Taylor shows up in the pen and Gen Pop, oh, snap. Oh, snap. Especially if some of those dudes in the pen were arrested by him before. Oh, snap. Oh. So of course he's scared. He's petrified. He's petrified. The worst thing for a cop is to be in prison with the people he brutalized or she brutalized and put in prison. That's the worst thing. That's the worst fear for a cop. And guess what? That's what's going to happen. And of course, they're saying, well, he has PTSD. You shouldn't have fired those shots, bro. But you did. So this is why I say cry me a river. Because you did what you did. And you wouldn't be making this case if they had said, you know what, he's a cop, he was justified. You wouldn't be saying all this. You wouldn't be having all this PTSD. You would have went on your merry little way. But you're saying it because you want people to have mercy on you. Because you got caught and now you're getting at least some semblance of accountability. You're not getting the full weight of the accountability because our system is twisted and evil. But you're getting some. And so please take the poll. But as for me, in my opinion, oh, they went too lenient. Because ultimately, Breonna Taylor deserved better. Breonna Taylor should be alive and never experienced that in the first place. We shouldn't even know her name. Her name should never be a hashtag unless we're congratulating her for something amazing that she did. That's the only reason why we should have a hashtag for her. Like, congratulations, Breonna Taylor. Or, way to go, Breonna Taylor. You saved a life. Because she was an EMT. But absolutely not. I do not think that it went far enough. Equally, I think that the officers that shot and killed her should be facing prison time. Now, I am personally not for the death penalty because there's too many people that are caught up in death row that are probably innocent. But the people who shot and killed Breonna Taylor, their sentence should be quite significant. And they should be in there with him. It shouldn't just be him. And this is what we go through in this Black community, day in and day out, over and over and over again. We're constantly being plagued with this BS. I'm going to share something right now, and I'm going to tell you right now. I don't even know if I can play this without. There was a young man that filmed himself being detained by police recently. It was shared on Hotspot. Shout out to Hotspot. But I'm going to pause right at a specific point. But I want you guys to know that this young man right here is experiencing what we, especially as Black Americans, have been going through since time immemorial on this land.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle.
When he pulled me over, he walked up, opened my door because my window don't work, right? Okay. And then I said, so what I did wrong? Yeah. He said, well, for one, your headlights are off under this weather. I'm like, okay. There's multiple people headlights off, okay, first of all. And then there's no rain.
It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on.
Can you pull that law up?
Huh?
Can you pull that law up?
Yeah, when you step out of the car, I will.
Okay, so he asked to pull the law up, right? Show him the law. And now they're like, get out of the car. Meaning they don't have access to that law. There's no rain. There's no inclement weather that's happening at that very moment. So therefore, the necessity for him to have his headlights on really shouldn't happen. And yeah, he got pulled over for that. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because he's a Black man with locks. That's part of it. It's not just the locks, the fact that he's a Black man. But he has locks that also kind of adds to it too. And as soon as you challenge, because you shouldn't be harassed by police, now it's when you try to get proof of the law that they say they're trying to enforce, and if they don't have it, they get frustrated. So guess what? They take their frustrations out on you, which is very unprofessional. And so they tell you to get out the car. When in reality, do they actually have probable cause to stop you? Do they have probable cause to get you to step out of the car? No, they don't. So then we have this situation.
Can you call your supervisor?
Oh, and guess what? When they say, can you call your supervisor? Oh, they get even more mad. Because by law, when you say, I need to speak to your supervisor, they're supposed to radio that supervisor, and that supervisor is supposed to come. But guess what? They don't want to do that. Why? Because they feel like, well, who is this uppity N-word telling me to get my supervisor? Hell no. I'm going to take them in anyway. Even though their detainment is actually illegal.
Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it.
Wait. Right after he said, can you call your supervisor? They didn't even wait. And people go, well, he should have just complied. Here's the problem with that argument. Should we comply with anything that the police does that's unlawful? Should we have to? And if people go, well, you just want to get home safe, well, then that means that police officer, that's fascism. That's a totalitarianism. Because now you have to fear for your life for somebody that's supposed to protect your life. So now you have to do what they say at gunpoint, which is against your own rights. So do you live in a free and open society? If you have to do something unlawful that they command, And then just so you can get home alive and safe? If they didn't have a badge, wouldn't that be assault, battery, kidnapping? To break into the window, wouldn't that be breaking and entering? Wouldn't that be all that? If they didn't have that badge? So what gives them the right to do it? Especially if they don't have probable cause. Especially if he asked for a supervisor. He literally requested for a higher superior officer to come to assess the situation. Therefore, that means he is not a threat. And yet, right after he asks, they break the window.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle. Show me your hands.
Here.
Boom! Boom! Hands right there. Free. Nothing in his hands. Is he a threat? Is he a threat? Was Breonna Taylor a threat? Was George Floyd a threat? Was Botham Jean a threat? Was Sandra Bland a threat? Was Sonia Massey a threat? Was Sensei Reed a threat? Was Eric Garner a threat? Was Laquan McDonald a threat? Was Tamir Rice a threat? Were they? Where's the threat? By the way, he said his window doesn't work.
I'm here. What is your reason, sir? What is your reason? Step out now. All right. No, don't. Get on the ground.
Now you wonder why we talk about defund the police on the way to abolition. Y'all wonder why. Y'all wonder why black people are on the forefront of pushing for police abolition so that we can actually have real public safety. Was that public safety that you just saw there? Was that public safety? Didn't look like it to me. If you think that's public safety, then there's something wrong with you. You need to look inward. If you're taking up for the officers that killed Breonna Taylor, you need to look inward. You need to find your humanity. And this is the problem. This is why we talk about the system needs to change. We need to have a system of real public safety. That's not public safety. That's totalitarianism. And to anybody that waves that flag of do not tread on me, that's treading on us. Why aren't you out in these streets protesting about what happened to that young man? That's treading on people. Shouldn't you be against it? Shouldn't you be against what happened to Breonna Taylor? Shouldn't you be demanding for more accountability to Brett Hankison and the other officers that murdered Breonna Taylor? But no. Some of y'all have so much belief in this system that you're willing to look past justice. And that's the part that's sick. Did you take the poll? Because I honestly think that this system has to end now. If it doesn't, well, society is cooked. And I don't know what's going to happen next. This is why we organize. This is why we build dual power. This is why we're trying to change the system and rebuild it anew. Thank you very much. Give a like to the stream. Let's go into the comments, the chats. Thank you so very much to everybody. Edward says Black Americans do not get a fair shake in the judicial system. It's a disgrace that this officer gets a light sentence. Do all things with love says the justice system is an oxymoron. Cobra Commander says police are not supposed to be judge and executioner, yet they get immunity for it. Holly Horn says, of course you defend your home, right? Holly Horn says, remember Botham Jean, R.I.P. Yep. Amy says, I'm glad the family got something, but what amount would ever be enough? It can't bring her back. Absolutely. Kaylin says, literally justified. Some judicial said it was okay, so they're justified. Edward says, Orange Man does not care about Black people. No, he doesn't. Roger says Kentuckians should push Kentucky legislator to allow them to place their own amendments on the ballot. Agreed. Jace says cops hate it when you don't show fear. I'm telling you, man. I mean, I'm just tired of this, man. And you know what the sad part is? You know, the people that are constantly defending these types of actions, sometimes I wonder if they have ever had real encounter with police like a lot of Black people have. And you know what's worse is that some of the people who are the worst police officers that do this are Black police officers because they're Black first. I'm sorry, they're cops first and Black second. Let's get into, let me check to see if we have any Rumble rants. Looks like we're good on the Rumble side. Things like that make me sick, man. So yes, thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. This was a great show. And so, yeah. So guys, I'll be heading out right now. Savvy Sabs starts in 10 minutes. I did not mean to go this long, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Look, I will see you guys on the Savvy and JV show this Thursday. And of course, I will continue the readings. like usual for this weekend. So we'll be getting into that. And then also next week, I have a special guest joining me. My special guest is also a Jaybefaunt channel viewer. Her name is Andrea Rosario Gabori. And she actually wrote her memoirs called How I Survived the Sierra Leone Civil War and Other Untold Stories. I got to meet her on Sunday at the Mutual Aid Solidarity Hub that we did, that I was volunteering for with Real at in my community this Sunday. So we were doing mutual aid, and so it was a privilege to be able to meet her there. She also gave me her book as well. So I'll be having her on next week. We're going to be talking a lot about Africa next week. So that's going to be a great and worthy conversation I cannot wait to have. So can't wait to have Miss Andrea on. And yeah, so thank you so very much for that. And by the way, if you guys have not, just letting you guys know, as far as I'm concerned, of course, I just want to let you guys know, yes, I am still raising funds for transplant expenses because post transplant, I got to take care of myself and take care of this gift that I was given. So thank you very much to everybody for that. This goes to doctor's appointments, co-pays, medications. This goes towards paying for gas money to get to medication, get my medications, to get back and forth to Tampa for, blood tests and seeing doctors and things like that. So thank you very much to everybody, as well as paying the medical bills as well. So thank you so very much for helping me and assisting me with this. And so I will put the link in the chat as well if you guys would like to donate. Because things have been a little hairy lately, especially in recent couple months. So thank you so very much for that. Also, Katie Lewis was also out there as well. It says she also showed up for the Freedom Feeders in Brevard County. Yes. So can't wait to have her on next week. So it's going to be an awesome time. It's going to be a great time. So we're going to be doing that. But yes, this was a heavy show, but I also want to end with something that is wholesome. I want you guys to be able to, have some good feels before I let you go. But of course, guys, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And please make sure to organize, and keep speaking the name of Breonna Taylor as well. I love you guys for watching. Forehead kisses. And I will see you guys in the next one. Now let's let this grandmother take it away. All right. Good night, everybody.
Love you, man.
Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. More head kisses, and have a beautiful day.